Roger Ferguson, always a pleasure. Great to see you. Thank you very much. Coming up here on Worldwide Exchange, a trio of Mag 7 members set to report earnings with new worries over DeepSeek could mean for big CapEx spending around artificial intelligence. Taking a look at the companies reporting today. Microsoft down fractionally, Meta up over 0.5%, Tesla down 0.5%. We're back in just a moment.
Are you overwhelmed with identity management in the context of omnipresent threats to your organization?
Hi, so no one knows what that means.
What's happening?
Just explain a walk to help secure digital identity. Keep it simple.
Like what?
Like when delivering a fresh uniform. Or viewing your results. Yeah, it's that. Or making bread soon at the high school reunion.
Oh, I love that color. Phew, that was a lot.
Oh, there's more. Like, lots more.
Home, where routine meets remarkable. With unexpected moments of inspiration around every corner and through every window. Quiet mornings in the sun, with portals to new worlds, and fine dining with a view. Your window treatments should be as inspiring as your home and the remarkable routine of your daily life. 3-day blinds.
Introducing Aztec Minerals, listed on the OTCQB and the Toronto Venture Exchange. Gold and silver prices have surged to multi-decade highs, creating a strong backdrop for precious metals exploration. Aztec Minerals is drilling in Tombstone, Arizona, a historic, high-grade silver and gold mining district with significant expansion potential, with additional drill results expected soon, and having private ownership of both surface and mineral rights. Aztec Minerals is positioned for growth. Symbol AZZTF on the OTCQB and AZT on the Toronto Venture Exchange.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM.
I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
At Ameriprise Financial, we know our clients are so much more than clients. They're conquerors and champions. And what matters most to them matters most to us. It's no wonder we have a 4.9 out of 5 client satisfaction rating. Ameriprise Financial.
Welcome back to Worldwide Exchange. So if a Fed decision, looming Trump tariffs, and new DeepSeek uncertainties, if all those weren't enough, investors are also on the lookout for a trio of Mag 7 names reporting after the market closed today. We're talking Microsoft, Tesla, and Meta. And they're specifically watching for commentary on AI spending, especially in the light of that DeepSeek cost breakthrough. Joining me now is Sarah Kuntz, Managing Director at Clio Capital. Sarah, good morning. Last time I think I talked to you, you were on your honeymoon. So it's great to have you, just, regular work time. Great to have you here. Good morning.
Back.
Let's start off with this DeepSeek news. Does it change as we go into earnings for these 3 companies, Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla? Does it change any of the narrative of them for your?
It'll probably.
We had a little technical difficulties, but why don't you go?
Yeah, so it'll probably somehow be good for Tesla. Everything seems to be good for Tesla. The reality, I think, though, is that it's going to depend on the storytelling. These companies are lucky, probably, that the DeepSeek news really hit a frenzy over the weekend, and that some of that is already priced in. So they've had time to kind of workshop those narratives and say, hey, here's what it means for us. In general, if you're a Meta, it's actually probably good because you get to say, look, guys, we're not going to have to spend quite as much as you might fear over time on AI, and we can get back to dividends faster, right? And so I think that for some of those names, it's good. I think for the Teslas of the world, it's sort of irrelevant, but I'm sure that they will spin it in a way where everything's coming up Elon, because that tends to be what they do. And so I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. You know, there's a reason I think that we saw NVIDIA, rightly or wrongly, sort of bear the brunt of the DeepSeek news.
All right. We also got some news this morning from Alibaba that they have a new model out. Is this something that we just need to get used to, the idea that tech companies, specifically tech companies in China, are going to roll out these models and that it could be disruptive to the narratives of some of the companies that we've been investing in and seeing move the market higher? How do you just view this development just on the heels of DeepSeek just a few days ago?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, a lot of the Chinese tech companies have a lot of involvement from their governments, which can, kind of impact when they announce things like this. That being said, anybody who thought that China somehow wasn't working on AI, wasn't paying attention to the chip war, right? And anybody who thought that they weren't going to come out with some great AI models themselves, I think hasn't been paying attention to history and their technological prowess. So if this disturbs your narrative, I think you were maybe listening to the wrong narrative to begin with. This isn't shocking. It's basically, I would say, about on schedule.
All right. In all fairness, Brad Gerstner from Altimeter Capital, he basically said nothing's really changed when it comes to this narrative either. So he agrees with you as well. I want to get back to the companies reporting earnings today, specifically Microsoft and Meta. They came out with their CapEx guidance. For Microsoft, it's $80 billion. For Meta, it's $65 billion. Is that good now? Is that not as good now that we know that some of these models can be created with less money and maybe you don't need as much power, you don't need as much time, you don't need as many data centers?
Data centers are going to find uses. You're probably seeing a lot about kind of the Jevons law popping around on the internet right now. The reality is that in general, when something becomes more efficient, we spend more of it. Remember how we barely used to touch our cell phones when it was like 10 cents a minute to talk? And then now most of us have unlimited and, unlimited data, and we cannot be pried away. So the reality is that as compute gets cheaper, as it's cheaper and cheaper to be able to actually invest in and use AI, you're going to see sort of more applications of it probably faster. And so I don't think that Microsoft or Meta is going to get dinged this quarter for that spend, but I do think that people are going to be questioning what does that look like 3 quarters from now, 2 years from now, because a lot of the narrative, particularly out of OpenAI, has been you will have to keep spending all the money forever, right? I think at 1.7 trillion was a number that was being floated, and that's not really accurate. But I think the smart money always knew that wasn't accurate.
By the way, Sarah, I had Sprint. I think the minutes were free after 7, so I did use my phone just for clarity. I want to get to Tesla very quickly. I was just actually talking to an auto executive yesterday saying that Tesla's been actually losing market share in the U.S. To GM. To other car makers in both luxury and also in more reasonably priced models. If that actually comes out to play out when it comes to Tesla, does that, in your mind, does that change your view of the company? Like, isn't there still a lot of debate about whether Tesla's an AI company or an auto company? If the numbers in the auto business are declining, what does that say about the overall business?
Tesla's an Elon company. If you take any sane metric and multiply it by 10 or probably even 100 in terms of what automakers are valued at, you get nowhere near Tesla's value. And that's been true for a really long time. Tesla is a bet on Elon. That is an increasingly sketchy bet because he's spreading his time thinner and thinner. But that is really what I look at Tesla in the market as. Do they have some AI? Sure, but he's putting a lot of his AI efforts, such as they are, into XAI and not into Tesla. And so if you're buying Tesla based on an AI story, I don't quite understand that trade. And yeah, the amount of cars being sold is going down. We're not seeing some great new hero car, either super, super high priced with great margins or really, really affordable. So I think Tesla's Tesla.
All right, looking at Tesla's forward PE right now, 128 times forward earnings. Sarah Kunst, always good to see you. Thank you very much. Coming up here on Worldwide Exchange, we have the one word that every investor has to hear today in the stock pick that every investor needs to know. Plus, a federal judge hitting the brakes on President Trump's federal aid freeze. The spending showdown taking shape in D.C. over billions in taxpayer dollars. We'll be right back after this.
Nobody's born with grit.
Rose is really struggling.
It's something you build over time.
It's 21 missed cuts in a row.
For 89 years, Morgan Stanley has offered clients determination and forward thinking to create the future only you can see.
Rose, back in the winner's circle.
The flag replacement program got started by a good friend of mine, a Navy vet, who saw the flag at the office that needed to be replaced and said, wouldn't this be great if this can be something that we did for anyone? Comcast has always been a community-driven company. This is one of those great examples of the way we're getting out there.
Is a Bitcoin ETF the same as owning Bitcoin directly? While Bitcoin ETFs might offer a familiar face, they lack the true ownership and flexibility of directly investing in Bitcoin. With iTrust Capital, you can buy and sell real Bitcoin 24/7 with the tax advantages of an IRA. Real Bitcoin means no middleman, no restricted stock market hours. Choose the path of direct Bitcoin investment with iTrust Capital, because access equals opportunity. Invest in Bitcoin at itrustcapital.com today.
Welcome to Reinvented with Accenture. Today I'm here with Margherita Della Valle, CEO of Vodafone. You were employee 25 in Vodafone Italy. Today you're the CEO of Vodafone. What is your strategy and vision for the future?
We are changing our culture to really focus on our customers. We need to acknowledge that change is hard, but if people understand it's for the right reason, then you get the power of the organization with you.
Light. It guides our every waking moment. What we do and how we do it. But the amount of light we need can change in an instant. And when it does, you can control it. 3-day blinds. Find the light for your life. Visit 3dayblinds.com to get started.
Turning to Washington and a fast-moving, developing story, a federal judge intervening in the effort by the Trump administration to cut trillions of dollars in government spending through freezing congressionally approved federal grants, loans, and other financial assistance programs. Our Emily Wilkins joins us now from Miami with much more in this story. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, Frank. Well, yeah, the Trump administration really sent some shockwaves through D.C. yesterday with that executive order to halt trillions in funding. But here at the House Republican Conference in Miami, there was barely a tremor, even as Medicaid portals closed across the country. Now, the White House did, of course, update their guidance to significantly narrow which programs are going to have their funding frozen. And then, as you mentioned, that federal judge blocked the order. Still, this is a really major early sign of how far Republicans are going to go to back Trump, even when he encroaches on congressional powers like funding the government. Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters that he fully supports the freeze, saying that any pause in funding would likely be a short one.
This is, I believe, an application of common sense. We want to make sure that the executive orders of the new president are being fully complied with regard to these programs.
A lot of Republicans that I spoke with also mentioned savings as an important thing here. And Republicans are going to be facing a major test of how committed they are to reducing federal spending, likely next week. Lawmakers say that they are expected to begin moving on a massive bill. It's going to include energy, border security, health care, tax policies. But the first step to all of that is actually to vote on how much the entire package is going to cost and if it will eventually add to the deficit. Now, Johnson said that the objective is to have the policies fully paid for, but he has yet to detail how lawmakers are going to offset trillions in expenses. And Frank, we will definitely be keeping a very close eye on that when we get back to D.C. next week.
Yeah, I would imagine you're keeping a very close eye on it. So Mike Johnson seems to be okay with it, but I would imagine there might be some other members of Congress that are taking issue with it. What are you hearing? I know you're there with a lot of congressional leaders right now.
Yeah, you know, honestly, Frank, I was able to speak with a number of lawmakers yesterday. This includes appropriators, the members who actually sit on the very powerful committee that is responsible for saying, okay, this program is going to get this amount of money. And really, it was very difficult to find anyone who had any concerns with it. We did hear Don Bacon. He's one of the few Republicans who's actually in a district that Biden won in the 2024 election. And he had a couple concerns when it seemed to be a pretty broad-ranging thing, but then after it was narrowed down, he said that he felt it was more appropriate given that these programs that are being targeted are specific to the executive orders that Trump put forward. So really couldn't find anyone to really speak out against what the president did yesterday. Very, very notable.
Yeah, I mean, very notable. I've seen a lot of articles calling it impoundment, actually. And that there's actually a law against it, but I'm sure this is going to be played out in D.C., all around the country. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people potentially impacted, of course. Emily Wilkins, live from Miami. Great to see you. Thank you very much. Coming up here on Worldwide Exchange, the under-the-radar real estate player, our next guest says, offers a great dividend option for investors. That name, we're going to reveal it with our mystery charts, up over 15% so far this year. It's coming up next. Stay with us.
Nothing stands still. Not technology, not the market, and not Franklin Templeton. We've been a firm in motion for over 75 years, always innovating. Today, we are a leader in public and private markets, digital assets, and custom tax management, empowering advisors with solutions to build the portfolios of the future today. Franklin Templeton, your trusted partner for what's ahead.
Buying a car is kind of a big deal. How do you know if it's the right car for you? Ooh, with the most deal ratings and complete vehicle history from Car Gurus. That's how. Boom.
I got her a little something.
A little something, Dad?
Hold up. Walt rolled his 401k account into an Empower IRA, and it's grown nicely. I'm for Team Splurge.
Thanks, Grandpa.
Get good at money so you can be a little bad. Empower.
Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024, the Audien Atom 2 series offers superior sound quality and functionality for a fraction of the price. For just $189 a pair, the Atom 2 features 4 different hearing modes for all types of hearing loss. It packs crystal clear sound, a nearly invisible design, and is even rechargeable.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids. They're so comfortable, I forget I'm wearing them. And the sound is amazing.
The Atom Pro 2 is our smallest hearing aid yet, featuring advanced background noise cancellation and is the world's first hearing aid with built-in UV cleaning that kills 99% of bacteria.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed without seeing a doctor or having a hearing test.
Join over 500,000 happy customers today and get the hearing you deserve.
Call on 800-687-6099. That's 800-687-6099. Call 800-687-6099.
The day's top stories driving Wall Street. Brian Sullivan joins Kelly Evans. Power Lunch, weekdays 2 Eastern, CNBC.
To me, ambition is drive. It's the fire in your belly. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I worked full-time while doing school full-time. Somewhere along the way, I got bitten by the journalism bug. No one's gonna give you your dreams. You have to roll up your sleeves and work hard to achieve them. Money doesn't make the world go round. Information does. And CNBC is the great economic equalizer because we provide that information so you can make the decisions that are right for you. CNBC is an adventure beyond my wildest dreams.
Welcome back to Worldwide Exchange. We close on the 6 a.m. hour. Here's a look at some of the big stories that we're following this morning. Microsoft and OpenAI are reportedly investigating whether DeepSeek used OpenAI's model to train its rival chatbot, including unauthorized access to OpenAI developer tools. Apple is reportedly working with Elon Musk's SpaceX and T-Mobile to add support for the Starlink network in its latest iPhone software, according to multiple reports. The Trump administration offering millions of federal workers the option to accept buyouts. The White House tells NBC it expects up to 10% of federal employees to take those buyouts. CNBC is also learning that Google Maps has reclassified the U.S. as a sensitive country in the wake of President Trump's recent Gulf of America comments. The designation is for states with strict governments and border disputes. Chubb is putting an early price tag on the impact of the L.A. wildfires. They now estimate those fires will cost $1.5 billion this quarter. And the Financial Times reports that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is looking into buying property around D.C. The FT notes the move comes as part of Zuckerberg's push to shape President Trump's views on the tech sector. All right, turning back to the market, stocks trying to add to the bounce back from Monday's DeepSeek-fueled sell-off. Taking a look at futures, been kind of mixed all morning long. Right now, similar situation. The S&P up fractionally. The Dow looks like it would open about 10 points flat, fractionally lower. The NASDAQ doing the best, up about 1/3% or 85 points. Joining me now is Matt Powers, managing partner at the Powers Advisory Group. Matt, good morning. Good to see you.
Morning, Frank.
So, Matt, what is your word of the day? How do you see today shaping up?
So the word of the day is inflection, and here's why. So it's already a big week, and there's a lot going on here. We started the week off with the DeepSeek headlines, and couple that with key earnings reports on mega caps, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla today, and Apple tomorrow. And there's a Fed decision out today, PCE report out Friday, and we're only a week off an inauguration. So it tees up for an important and busy day and week for that matter. But it's inflection because it might shape up to be a potential turning point or inflection. Looks like we could shift some focus from mega caps into some undervalued sectors. I talk about that a lot. So maybe a little recalibration in the markets and investment strategies in general.
All right, so you think it might be a recalibration. We were hitting on this earlier with a guest, the fact that value, if you look at these two Russell ETFs that we're about to show, values outperform growth since the hawkish cut back in December. How do you view the value trade right now? Are you looking for stocks that pay dividends? Are you looking for income, or are you looking for growth?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. You know, it's an interesting conversation to have. So one of the more common conversations we've had with clients right now is what to do with the concentrated mega cap positions they've got. And we've kept the stance to hold the positions, and you have to start looking elsewhere to diversify into some undervalued stocks. It's standard practice in managing an investment portfolio, and I'm afraid it's actually got lost on some investors. So, you know, from that, you know, while tech struggled Monday, dividend-focused ETFs like SCHD, which is Schwab's U.S. dividend equity ETF, it was up more than 1% that day. So, you know, traditional value and defensive sectors had nice gains on Monday, and it's just a reminder there's more to the market than just tech and AI. And if Monday made investors uncomfortable, we've got some different areas we're looking at.
Matt, we're going to get to your pick for today. What is your pick and why?
Prologis. So it's not necessarily a household name, but really it should be. They're a $100 billion REIT. They're the largest owner and manager of industrial properties and warehouses and distribution centers in the U.S. And, you know, again, this is a pure dividend growth play, so we're not typically recommending REITs, but they've got a very healthy yield, 3.4% yield, and you just mentioned it. I mean, the shares are up 15% so far this year, but you know, it's still off 30% from its 2022 peak, and they had an earnings report out last Tuesday that was very favorable, and the stock jumped. But there's just plenty to like here, and it's adding a great dividend growth name at an attractive valuation, and it's completely understated at this point.
3% dividend, to your point. Matt Powers, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much. Your pick for us today, Prologis.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Here's what to watch today. We get earnings from Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla after the bell at 2 p.m. We've been talking about it all morning long. We get the Fed's latest rate decision, followed by Chairman Jay Powell's press conference. And we also have a CNBC exclusive for you, an interview with Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol on the back of the company's earnings. That's coming up at 9 a.m. Eastern. A lot to talk about there when it comes to the coffee chain. One more look at futures before we let you go. We've been looking all morning long. Futures a bit mixed right now. The Nasdaq, the best performer, up about 1/3%. The S&P and the Nasdaq, or the Dow, I should say, both pretty much close to flat. That does it for us. Squawk Box starts right now.
Good morning. A federal funding freeze has now been frozen. A judge ordered a halt to the Trump administration's order. We've got details straight ahead. Plus, the White House offering buyouts now to nearly all federal workers, including benefits and 8 months of pay for those who resign by February 6th. Plus, a flood of AI news will bring you just from overnight alone, including reaction to DeepSeek, the launch of Alibaba's new AI model, and so much more. It is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, and Squawk Box begins right now. Good morning and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Leslie Picker this morning, and Mike Santoli. Becky and Joe are both off today, but that doesn't stop the train. We got a lot going on, and the train has left the station on the news front this morning because there is a lot of it. Let's show you U.S. equity futures right now. Where things stand. Dow not moving around too much. I was just in the green about a moment ago. Now you're seeing a little bit of red, but the Nasdaq up about 79 points. You're looking at the S&P 500 up about 4 points. All of this coming after stocks climbed yesterday, recovering now some of Monday's losses. The Dow up by 0.3%. The S&P up by 0.9%. The Nasdaq had risen by about 2%. Now take a look at NVIDIA because it rebounded by about 9%. This after Monday's losses, which were steep, 17%. And lots of questions continue to persist about the implications of this emergence of DeepSeek, the AI model coming out of China. We'll talk about Alibaba's model in just a moment because that's also adding to some of the questions that people have about how this is all going to work in the future. Treasuries right now, let's show you the 10-year and the 2-year. You're looking at 4.5% on the 10-year, the 2-year sitting at 4.193, and then Bitcoin, to the extent that it is going to be our signal of animal spirits or maybe of tech bros or something like that, you're looking at 102,419. So that's actually stayed modestly in the same place as yesterday, but of course we had dropped below 100,000 on the back of the DeepSeek news as the entire sort of technology complex seemed to fall apart.
Been a pretty tenacious bid in Bitcoin on any wobble. And, you know, you hear these reports of yesterday was retail investors rushing in and saying, here's my chance to get the AI trade at a discount. And whether that means it's a durable, smart money buy the dip type of response or, you know, just muscle memory, we'll have to see. But it is kind of interesting. Bitcoin moves along with a lot of that type of flow.
And institutional investors, as we talked about yesterday, really were a huge composition of the selling.
Sure.
A lot of nervousness and kind of calls into question what that means for the AI trade as a whole, especially if retail is making up a large portion of the rebound.
And it raises the stakes for all the earnings we're going to hear. And so now all of a sudden you have an extra layer of scrutiny on, you know, what are you getting for all the CapEx? Has it changed your thinking? Has it not? And of course now Microsoft, the news this morning, maybe checking to see if DeepSeek, you know, utilized some things, developer tools that may not have been properly have access to. We'll see.
And what they can do about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Is a big question. A federal judge has paused an order by the Trump administration that would have frozen existing federal grants and loans until agencies vetted them. The judge's ruling came just minutes before the freezing order was set to take effect at 5 p.m. yesterday and lasts until Monday, pending more hearings. The Trump administration's order is part of an effort to cut spending that does not comply with his efforts to purge, quote, woke ideology from government programs. And separately, the Trump administration is offering millions of federal workers the option to accept buyouts through a government-wide deferred resignation program if they resign by February 6th. Those who accept the offer will receive pay and benefits through September 30th, according to a draft email obtained by NBC News. A senior administration official told NBC that the sweeping buyouts are being offered to make sure all federal workers are on board with the administration's plan to have federal employees in office and adhere to higher standards. The buyouts are being offered to all full-time federal employees except military personnel, postal workers, and roles related to immigration enforcement and national security.
But lots of confusion still about who's really eligible, who's not. Some mentions in the letter apparently that, you know, we still can't promise you that there'll be a job on the other side of this. We will still deal, you know, work with you.
If you don't take
If you don't take it, right. Yeah. If you don't take the buyout, we can't promise you what's going to happen. So you could keep your job, but, you know, it's possible that your agency may get eliminated in 6 months from now.
And then you don't get the 8 months of severance.
And then it's it's unclear. They talk about trying to deal with people with dignity in the future, but you know, you offer 8 months now and 6 months later. I don't know. 8 months. I was trying to look on a sort of privatized basis. 8 months actually is a lot.
That is, yeah.
It is.
But what does it mean? Do you surrender your accumulated retirement benefits?
Well, and none of that is in the email.
None of it's clear, right?
The email, interestingly, and I don't know if you guys have followed this, is very much like the email that Elon Musk sent.
Yes. Right after the buyout in 2022.
Right after the buyouts to his own team.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he drafted it himself. I don't know if somebody just took his email and said, we'll send something like that.
Well, it's this idea of, you know, there's a new chief in town.
Yep.
If you're not on board with what we're doing here, you should resign immediately. And they make it very easy, by the way, in the email. You just have to reply, resign, I think.
Yes.
Or yes, opt in.
Yes. No, I think it's resign. Just resign in the subject line, and you're good.
And you're good. No.
Well, the question is, are you good? And that's the other piece of this.
Although, you know, in fairness, with a corporate buyout plan, that is also sometimes the implication, too. Like, if we don't get enough people signing up for this buyout, there's going to be layoffs.
Right.
So that maybe isn't that different. What I think is maybe worth another question is, okay, so if you don't resign, you implicitly say, I agree with the back-to-office policy, full-time. Do you agree with everything else that the administration says federal employees are supposed to adhere to? In other words, you know, the Trump administration has said that they believe they can enforce a lot of policy and ideological rigor within the civilian workforce. And so what are you all actually signing up for if you stay? Also, I mean, I think it's fascinating because the savings are not huge.
Right.
They're talking about $100 billion. I have no idea where you can possibly get to that if 10% of the civilian, non-military, non-defense department workforce gets there. It's kind of an amazing thing. They seem like DOGE wants to sort of the shortest path to declaring a win on making the government more efficient. Of course the government can become more efficient, and everybody would agree with that. But the idea that it's chunks of money that are material to the federal budget is in question.
I think that the Elon Musk strategy, for the way he's been running his businesses, is just it's an all-out assault on whatever the thing of the moment is, and that he thinks the drip, drip, drip approach, meaning not to say that it's not thoughtful one way or the other, but the approach that maybe some other people would take doing this would take a much longer time, and you might get to the same result or maybe worse. And so maybe it's just a rip the Band-Aid situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's motivational in addition to simply being about cost discipline.
It's also self-selecting, though, in a sense, because, you know, if you have everybody resigning who follows one ideology, do you get the risk of this kind of groupthink mentality where everybody who does remain
a different
just has
version
the
of DEI, right?
Or if it's the
same
people who have private sector job prospects, and they're the ones more likely to take the buyout. And who you are.
I mean, look, the biggest issue is just whether you're going to actually be able to maintain, to the extent that you believe that they're talented people, hopefully, who are working honorably for our government on behalf of the citizenry of America. If the talented people decide, I'm not doing this, that unto itself is when the whole thing sort of becomes complicated.
It's amazing. It's also 1.5% of the total national workforce. Like, it's really not a lot of people in aggregate, but understandably we get the attention on it right from the get-go. All right, now to some corporate news. We are watching shares of Starbucks. Earnings and revenue beat estimates, but same-store sales declined for the 4th straight quarter. CEO Brian Niccol said the company has seen a positive response to the early steps it has taken, including removing extra charges for non-dairy milk options, focusing its marketing on its coffee, and cutting back on menu options. Niccol will be on Squawk on the Street at 9 a.m. Eastern Time today in a CNBC exclusive interview. The initial stock response was positive, and then it sort of
Have you seen the new commercials?
Yes.
Do you like them?
I do.
With the song, They Call My Name. You know, I'm not going to do the song.
No, I get it.
You know the song? You ready for it?
Yeah, but I was hoping you would sing
You want to do it?
No, I think you should.
It's like, they call my name. They call my name. They call my name Jane. And then they do the different names, and you're seeing them sign the
cup.
The cup, exactly.
Trying to get back to some kind of emotional connection.
Yeah.
And interestingly, at the end, the Starbucks Coffee Company. It wasn't Starbucks.
That's right.
It was the Starbucks
Which
Coffee
was the
Company.
real name.
And but it was also, it sort of had this old school
Coffee
sense
house
of like,
vibe.
You're gonna, yes. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of back to basics. We'll see. Meanwhile, Dutch semiconductor giant ASML reported a big jump in 4th quarter net bookings, up 169% from the prior quarter, thanks to strong demand for its advanced chip-making tools. The company's CEO told CNBC that the arrival of low-cost AI models, such as DeepSeek, would drive more demand for semiconductors, not less. He said the lower cost of AI could mean more applications, which would mean more demand over time. The stock, with an initial pretty positive response after a rough go, it's up 7%.
What do you think? Is this like, you know,
I mean,
it's just like asking, you know, as Warren Buffett says, you don't ask the barber when you need a haircut. You know, I don't know, when they stopped using scissors and they started having the buzzer cut, did they say, well, that buzzer cut, that buzz that makes it more efficient, there's going to be a lot more haircuts now.
And just because there's more demand for semiconductors doesn't mean that the urgency of building new data centers and buying more of these, you know, machines is going to ramp up from here.
Right.
So.
Meantime, Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff weighing in on the market shockwaves caused by the launch of China's DeepSeek AI. Here's what he said last night on Mad Money with Jim Cramer.
The majority of the models are American models, but here we see now the Chinese also coming in with not only an aggressive, competitive model, but one that's cheaper and lower cost. So it just gives everybody the motivation to keep going and going faster.
You know, saying the DeepSeek would not be the last Chinese AI model, and to expect a lot more innovation to come in artificial intelligence. To some degree, you could argue he's a winner of this because he has not invested the same kind of CapEx that a lot of the other big technology companies have. And so everybody, including Apple, Salesforce, anybody who hasn't really won this game or played the same game at least that that the Googles of the world and some of the others were playing, I think are looking at this and going, it's a win.
The market immediately tried to just impose that rotational trade on and say, okay, whatever companies actually touch the user, the customer, and therefore if AI is going to get cheaper and be more utilized, we're going to go to that. Because everyone in the back of their mind realizes that that transition always happens in these technology movements.
Is that what it is? Or is it a rotational trade, or do you think there's a real basis for it in the sense that...
I think it's both.
They don't have that same pressure in terms of just showing the ROI for these enormous CapEx numbers, and therefore they're able to, you know, benefit.
Well, look, if you can have the same, if you
it.
can somehow have a product that is somehow even close to what the other guy has, and you don't have to spend the same amount of money.
Good enough is good enough sometimes, and I think that's the idea. Or that, you know, again, we always know that eventually it moves from hardware, building the foundational technology and models, to applications and software and just the devices that you have in your hand. And so people just said, okay, that moment is here, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, because the market wrote them out for so long. It was so easy to switch that, to turn that switch back on.
Yeah, for sure.
Meantime, the U.S. Navy has now instructed its members to avoid using AI technology from China's DeepSeek. In a warning issued by email on Friday, the Navy said DeepSeek was not to be used in any capacity, that's in quotes, due to potential security and ethical concerns associated with the model's origin and usage.
Fascinating. New this morning, Chinese tech company Alibaba releasing a new version of its Qwen AI model that it claims surpassed the latest model from DeepSeek. The release caught some people off guard because it came on the first day of the Lunar New Year when most Chinese businesses are closed for the holiday. In the release, the company said Qwen also outperformed OpenAI's GPT-4 and the latest version of Meta's Llama. You have to wonder, guys, the timing of this all. It's fascinating. Given that it is all coming out, it feels like this week, in the sense of, Trump has been in office for a week and a half now. There are geopolitical implications at play.
Did DeepSeek wait a week or two, you're saying, to release their model?
I don't know if they waited a week or two, but they're all happening the same week. And the fact that there is a holiday, the Lunar New Year, where most people would not expect any announcements and they're coming anyway, not to mention, not to be all conspiracy theorists about it, I don't know if that's the case, you've got the big tech earnings this week. I mean, there just feels like a lot of cross currents from a timing standpoint.
What do you make of the idea of this? So there's this idea that these models, including DeepSeek, possibly some of these others, effectively are ripping off OpenAI's models or ripping off other people's models. They use this word distillation or distill. I made a point on Twitter last night. Is distilling somebody else's model like basically training on copyrighted content?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So the content media world has been complaining about this for quite some time. These people now seem to be complaining a lot that somehow their
Feels
work,
like karma in some
their
ways.
work is being distilled.
Yeah.
Just an interesting word.
It is interesting.
Distilled.
Obviously, I don't know enough about exactly the mechanics of it, but whether there's a way to detect if, they've kind of ported over direct, kind of code or shortcuts that OpenAI has arrived at.
My understanding of distilling something is that you basically ping the other
AI
model
application,
and effectively you're almost like you're asking it a million questions
like brute force,
about how it works.
Oh, interesting.
And it's telling you how it reasons, how it does this, how it does that, and so, but with code.
Yeah.
So you're sort of understanding the underlying, how it's working in each area, and you're just doing it constantly.
So then is that copyright infringement, or is that just...
Look, in a business that the entire AI models are built off of copyright infringement. I think we can say that empirically.
Sure.
I know that some of my friends in AI don't believe that, but it seems to be.
Yeah.
It's all been distilled. The world has been distilled digitally. But I don't really like that word. Have been stolen digitally. Maybe that's
a more poignant word.
Closer to reality. Coming up, the Fed's latest policy announcements due this afternoon, and there's some key tech earnings out after the bell. We're going to break it down. We've got the Squawk Planner coming up, and don't miss our special interview with LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman. He's one of the AI OGs. We're going to get into all of this with him. Squawk Box is coming right back.
You can contribute up to $7,000, $8,000 if you're 50 or older, into a traditional or Roth IRA by April 15th and still have it count for the 2024 tax year. Traditional IRA contributions are generally tax deductible, but Roth IRA contributions are not. For CNBC, I'm Sharon Epperson.
I'm sorry, there was a long line at the Thai place.
You get the sauce I like?
Of course.
Look a man.
I wish.
The future isn't scary. Not investing in it is. NASDAQ 100 Innovators, one ETF. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
Brian tried to stop you from switching to Coupa. This is Sarah. She's not a friend.
Sarah!
Brian!
Hey.
So I was right about Coupa, huh?
Tell me, what do you like most about their AI-powered total spend management platform?
AI that predicts, prescribes, and automates direct and indirect spend management. You?
I like how Coupa helps us mind our business.
That's interesting because you seem to have a hard time minding your business. Your shoes are too big.
Wow, sick burn. Where were you?
Help us retire. It's a simple ask of our elected leaders. But the tax treatment we rely on to grow our 401ks, IRAs, and other retirement plans could be on the chopping block in Congress. Any policymaker who makes it harder to save for retirement is standing against the financial well-being of 120 million Americans. It's time to prioritize our retirement savings. Learn more at helpusretire.org. Help Us Retire is sponsored by the Investment Company Institute, representing asset managers serving individual investors.
Bitcoin is the best performing asset, but its volatility has kept many on the sidelines. Until now. Introducing the world's first 100% downside protected Bitcoin ETF. Capture Bitcoin's upside potential while staying protected. Asset management at a time of disruptive change. Calamos, today for tomorrow.
Let's talk about AI in China versus AI in the United States.
DeepSeek, one of the companies within China, it's been reported at least that they have a cluster of 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs.
DeepSeek, their model is actually the top performing or roughly on par with the best American models.
To see the DeepSeek new model, it's super impressive and it's super compute efficient.
We're not just about managing information, we're about supplying digital workers. Now we're making this transformation of digital labor.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
Your hair is personal, and so is hair loss. Through Hims, you can get access to proven ingredients and simple-to-use formulas for all types of hair loss. Your prescription and any follow-ups or questions are handled by licensed medical providers, 100% online. So whether you want to chew, pop, spray, or drop your way to regrowth, Hims can help you find the hair loss treatment that works for you. For regrowth in 3 to 6 months, get started today at Hims.com.
Is Cialis Daily better than Viagra? Does it last longer than Viagra? Are sample packs available? Get started with a 30-day sample pack. Generics now only $1 per tablet at rexmd.com/30.
On today's Squawk Planner, the Fed concludes its policy meeting with a rate announcement due at 2 p.m. Eastern. The central bank expected to pause rate cuts, leaving them steady. As for earnings, a few notable reports this morning, including T-Mobile, Norfolk Southern, and NASDAQ. NASDAQ CEO Adena Friedman will join us after that report. That's a first on CNBC. And after the closing bell, we'll hear from some big ones, IBM, Meta Platforms, Microsoft, and Tesla. And for more on the markets, let's bring in Jim Paulson, author of the newsletter Paulson Perspectives and former chief investment strategist for both the Luthold Group and Wells Capital Management. And Jim, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks for coming on.
You bet, Mike. Great to see you.
So talk about, I don't know, how the first almost month of the year has unfolded, both in terms of, collective expectations for this magic combination of a pretty sturdy economy and maybe rates off their highs and with room to cut and earnings are growing. It seems as if kind of all cylinders firing on the bull case, but you think maybe there might be a little bit of a scare along the way?
I do, Mike. I think one of the reasons is just what you bring up. I think in some sense the sentiment, the feel today is calmer than it's maybe been in this entire bull market. I mean, this bull market has lived under the haunting image of the Fed tightening all the time. It's constantly and chronically had imminent recession forecast almost always in place, kind of climbing a wall worry. Last year, we had a war in the Middle East, a war in Ukraine, a war for the White House, and a lot of those seem to be calming down, and there's now a new era with the golden era with the new president and good feel, and there's a sense the economy not only is not weak, it's almost too good. And it just bothers me a little bit that sentiment's kind of got there, and that tells me that it could be upset if it comes in a little differently than that. I'd also point out that the third year of a bull, which we're in, historically back to 1945, Mike, is not that great. Historically, returns have been about 5%. The frequency of corrections are much higher in the third year than they are in the first and second. And then lastly, what concerns me the most is just, economic policies have really been tightening a lot lately. Not only bond yields up 1% since the mid-September, but also the dollar, the real value of the dollar is almost at an all-time record high now, dating back to when it was first floated in the early 1970s. Money growth is just a little over 3%, which is insufficient to support a 5% nominal GDP. And fiscal juice has been flat, even though the economy has continued to slow, which means that it's gotten tighter. So I think we're going to slow the economy down, and I don't think we're going to have recession, but I think we might reignite some recession fears. And I think it's going to come as a surprise now that everybody thinks the water's safe, so to speak.
It's interesting. The Fed, obviously, they've cut 3 times. We're going on a sort of a hold pattern for the moment, it would appear, in part because they feel as if the economy doesn't need any help and they want to allow inflation, maybe if it's going to continue to come down, to do so, or if we do get a little bit of a spark, whether it's from policy or elsewhere, to inflation to perk up, they can maybe just hold things here for a bit. Do you think that there's risks involved in them pausing? Because, historically, if the Fed's going slow, if they've just done some adjustment rate cuts and then let the economy breathe, it usually is okay, but you feel like that's a little risky?
I do, a little bit. This Fed has kind of been behind what all the other policies have been doing throughout this cycle, Mike. The inflation started rising from 0.5% in mid-2020 to 9.1% by mid-2022. And while bond yields went up and the money supply came way down and fiscal juice tightened and the dollar went up, the Fed didn't start tightening until the inflation rate was 8.5% in April of 2022. And so it kind of eased all the way up while everything else was tightening. Then when inflation came down, all the other policies started easing and the Fed kept tight. And I think kind of now the Fed started easing and all the other policies were tightening. Ever since mid-September when they've started their easing campaign, everything else has been a tightening force. And I'll tell you what, it's been more important if you followed the other policies than to follow the Fed. That is to say, the other policies have been right and have kind of shown the path ahead, not the Fed. The Fed's been behind the other policies and been wrong. So in some sense, when the Fed didn't tighten, you wanted to be prepared for tightening and slowing. And when the Fed was tightening, you wanted to believe there wasn't a recession. And now, again, I think the Fed's behind the curve still. And I think this time, with the economy now slowing down to 5% nominal GDP growth, it's risking staying too tight too long, particularly when all the other policies are tightening as well right now. So I just think we have a chance here that we're finally going to get back to a recession scare before this year is over. Have a correction. I don't think we're going to have a fair market because balance sheets are too strong and liquidity is too ample. But I think we could have a pretty good recession scare, maybe a 10% correction.
Yeah, well, we skirted that last year. It's rare to go 2 years in a row without at least that kind of correction, Jim. Appreciate the time this morning. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Coming up, shares of LVMH are falling despite better than expected results. We'll dig into the numbers next. As we head to break, though, check out shares of JetBlue. You can call that some turbulence there. They tumbled 25% in yesterday's session after the company said it expects an increase in revenue this year, but also an increase in unit costs. Squawk Box will be right back.
Most power players on Wall Street rate NVIDIA a strong buy today. Yet why then are so many legendary investors quietly ignoring that advice and instead selling the stock hand over fist? Every billionaire on your screen has recently sold NVIDIA. Some have offloaded millions of shares. And mark my words, this is bigger than NVIDIA. Hedge funds are quietly selling all of their tech stocks at the fastest rate we've seen since 2016. It begs the question, what do they know that you don't? My name is Mark Chaikin. I helped build 3 indices for the NASDAQ during my 50 years on Wall Street. That means I know how to recognize these signals from the tech market and exactly what they mean for you and your money. I explain everything in my new market briefing, including the truth of what's going on with NVIDIA today and the specific stock I recommend you buy instead. I'll give you its name and ticker when you visit the website below. NVIDIA has been the most talked about stock in the market, and for good reason. It's led the AI revolution that has taken the U.S. stock market by storm. Since they announced their AI-powered computer chip in 2023, NVIDIA's stock has been on a history-making tear, officially surpassing Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company. Today, however, many investors are worried the tide is changing. NVIDIA's day in the sun may soon be coming to a dramatic end. And as a result, I predict a different under-the-radar stock is primed for big potential gains from this moment on. To get its name and ticker 100% free, simply visit the website below.
Interactive Brokers pays up to 3.83% on instantly available cash in your brokerage account. How much interest can your bank or broker pay? Interactive Brokers' conservative and prudent risk management uniquely positions us to pay up to 3.83% on uninvested, instantly available cash in your brokerage account. The best informed investors choose Interactive Brokers.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM.
I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
A new administration, new Fed strategies? Could the Trump agenda impact inflation? And the Fed's next move? Fed Chair Powell's crucial remarks and message to investors. Power Lunch, today 2 Eastern, CNBC.
Time now for the Executive Edge. Shares of luxury giant LVMH are falling in European trading, down more than 5% right now. The company reporting full-year growth of about 1% versus the prior year, fueled by solid demand from perfume and cosmetics. But sales in China lagged, and sales declined in several of its businesses, including fashion, leather goods, and wine and spirits. Other luxury stocks, including Kering and Christian Dior, are falling in sympathy. I guess they didn't quite get the boost yet from the Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Donning her Louis Vuitton.
Last year, you mean? Or in 2 weeks?
Or not, sorry, not at the Super Bowl, at the playoffs.
Oh, in the playoff game, yeah.
I was jumping to conclusions. I don't know what she's wearing.
Who knows what she'll
quite
wear
yet.
a week before, a week after next. All right.
Exactly.
Coming up, we'll take you live to the House Republican retreat in Miami for reaction to today's top political stories, including buyout offers from most federal employees. Right now, as we head to break, here's a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers. It was a bit of a recovery day for big consumer and tech stocks.
Executive Edge is sponsored by AT&T Business. Next level moments need the next level network.
AT&T has a new guarantee because most things in business are not guaranteed. Like a distraction-free work environment. Get those steps in, Kevin. Your coworkers keeping things confidential? Oh, she's spilling all the tea. Or office etiquette. Yeah, that's not guaranteed.
I know you can see.
You know what AT&T guarantees? Connectivity you depend on, the deals you want, and the service you deserve.
Can I get that logo bigger?
Or we'll make it right. That's the AT&T guarantee.
Out here, no 2 days are the same. Some days are for breakfast with friends at home, others for going out. At Tractor Supply, we'll help you make the most of life out here, no matter how you live it. Tractor Supply, for life out here.
Want the fastest working GLP-1 for half the price? Roe now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with a formula from Eli Lilly. See if you qualify at roe.co/TV.
You make good choices. They've shaped your journey. To leave all that your life built rock solid for generations. With ambition like that, you need someone who elevates advice to a craft. At UBS, we match your vision with insight and expertise to shape a unique outcome for you. Advice is our craft.
It's not just about the ticket sales. It's maintaining that connectivity with her fans.
The power of a fan base.
She's built this billion-dollar brand.
She's able to do that in a pretty unique way.
The Swift Effect, Part 2, tonight, 10 Eastern, CNBC.
Are you drowning in credit card debt? In over your head trying to make monthly payments? It's not your fault, but there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades. With one affordable low monthly payment, Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months, saving you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Find out how much you can save. Call 1-800-600-7115. There is light at the end of the tunnel. For over 15 years, the Credit Associates team has been a trusted solution to credit card debt. With one call, you can soon be on your way to debt freedom. Don't declare bankruptcy. Don't consolidate. Call now. A few minutes could save you thousands. Even better, there are no upfront fees. Join the Debt Relief Program. Call Credit Associates and see how much you could save. 1-800-600-7115. Live better, debt-free.
Good morning. Welcome back to Squawk Box. We are live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square this morning. A little bit of red on the Dow, but the NASDAQ powering back again after powering back again yesterday after that awful day on Monday. S&P 500 up about 2 points. We are watching shares of Novo Nordisk, the company's drug, of course, Ozempic, approved by the FDA to treat chronic kidney disease in those with diabetes. A late-stage trial finding that Ozempic reduced the risk of kidney failure, decline in kidney function, or death from kidney or heart causes by 24%. That is versus a placebo. Versus, I should say, a placebo.
Remarkable. The use cases keep climbing. House meeting in Miami at the 2025 Issues Conference, where Speaker Mike Johnson spoke to the group last night. Emily Wilkins joins us now with more. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Leslie. Well, yeah, during their time in Miami, one thing that's become really clear is that House Republicans are sticking very close with Trump, even when he kind of infringes on their congressional powers. Remember, Congress is supposed to be the ones to control the purse strings in D.C., which programs are funded. But almost all Republican lawmakers that I spoke with yesterday and that other reporters spoke with backed Trump after his administration proposed halting hundreds of billions in federal grants that could threaten payments and programs that would impact millions of Americans. Now, the White House did eventually clarify that many of those programs are not going to be impacted. And then just minutes before it was supposed to take impact, a federal judge temporarily blocked the order before it could go into effect. And a little after that, Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters that he fully supports any halt in funding that Trump wants to make, saying that any pause would likely be a short one.
This is, I believe, an application of common sense. We want to make sure that the executive orders of the new president are being fully complied with regard to these programs.
Of course, Johnson and the House have incredibly narrow margins this Congress, which means that Republicans are likely going to be relying fairly heavily on Trump to help them pass major legislation and make sure all lawmakers are on board. Remember, they've got that big package they're working on that has a number of priorities, including expanding energy, bolstering border security, and extending current tax cuts. And guys, we're expecting to get a little more information on what that package is going to look like and, more importantly, what it's going to cost next week.
With regard to those tax cuts and the extension of the tax package specifically, Emily, what's your expectation? Are you hearing relative consensus from Republicans on that, or is there going to be a bit more debate to be had?
So I think in a number of areas there is consensus. It seems like a lot of Republicans are fine keeping corporate tax rates at 21%. And you got a little bit taste of what Republicans are looking for last year when they moved that bill with extended child tax credits, as well as RD tax credits for businesses and other things to help out a number of businesses and smaller companies. And so those things they all agree to, but there are some sticking points. We know that state and local tax, that cap that a lot of members from New York, York, New Jersey, California are pushing to raise, that could be a potential problem. We're also, of course, trying to figure out exactly which provisions Trump has pushed could make this final bill. Remember, anything that they decide to add to it, such as no tax on tips, that's going to increase the overall cost of what's being paid. And I think that's where you're going to see one of the biggest debates. If they come out with a proposal and say, hey, this could add $1.5 trillion to the deficit, like they did in 2017, you could see some of the more fiscal hawkish members say, hey, we can't support that. And of course, with tight margins, even 2 or 3 members voting against the legislation is going to be enough to kill it.
Fascinating. Well, tax is a key part of this policy and what it means for the economy. Emily, thank you.
Okay. Coming up, we're going to get you ready for Tesla's earnings. That's due after the bell, plus reaction to the latest headlines from Elon Musk's Washington job as head of Doge. That is next. And a reminder, you get the best of Squawk Box in our daily podcast. Follow Squawk Pod on your favorite podcast app and listen anytime. We're coming right back.
It's not if the markets will turn, it's when. At Howard Capital Management, our proprietary family of funds actively navigates complex market landscapes while seeking to safeguard your tomorrow. We aim to empower investors, delivering opportunities with a tactical, mathematical approach. Start investing with confidence today. Contact your financial advisor and see how Howard Capital Management can redefine your fund experience.
Hindsight may be 20/20, but what investors need today is 20/20 foresight. VectorVest has it.
I'd be trading blind if it wasn't for VectorVest. The best stock site, period.
Test drive VectorVest today for only 99 cents.
Want the fastest working GLP-1 for half the price? Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
My clients deserve someone who understands their world, someone who listens,
who has their best financial interest at the center of every decision.
Our business is built around being responsive to our clients' ever-changing needs.
As an advisor,
as their RA custody services provider,
I see my client's success as my own. Because when they grow, we grow with them.
For over 25 years, we've been committed to RIAs.
And that's why I chose Trade PMR.
In today's always-on world, even a moment of downtime can cost your business big. At AmericanEagle.com, we provide 24/7, 365 monitoring and support for your applications across all cloud platforms. Affordable, customized solutions that work as an extension of your team. We do this all the time. Let us handle the risks so you can focus on what matters most. We'll keep your cloud running so you don't have to. Contact AmericanEagle.com today for an audit of your cloud environment.
Is Cialis Daily better than Viagra? Does it last longer than Viagra? Are sample packs available? Get started with a 30-day sample pack. Generics now only $1 per tablet at rexmd.com/30.
Brian Sullivan joins Kelly Evans. Power Lunch, weekdays 2 Eastern, CNBC.
Join the club and start your investing day before the opening bell with specific strategies for members only.
By joining the club, it gave me access to that knowledge from Jim that gave me more confidence in my investing decisions.
It's very helpful. It's information that you have. It's privileged information. There is no other source of information that you can get as much as you can get from him.
Get invested. Join the club.
Get invested. Join the club today. Go to cnbc.com/join Jim.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Boeing working with Elon Musk on ways to deliver Air Force One replacements sooner. In an interview on CNBC yesterday, Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg saying they've now engaged with Musk on ways to eliminate costs and deliver the aircraft earlier. A pair of Boeing 747s that will serve as the next presidential aircraft are more than $2 billion over budget. The company has attributed that to design changes, labor constraints, also some of the supply chain problems. So hopefully we'll see those planes sooner or later. They have a different livery, as you know, in terms of the look on the outside. bit of a darker blue, a little more of a richer red, this sort of light blue, Kennedy-esque. Tiffany blue is not the case anymore.
Right. Hopefully more updates than just that, you would think. Hopefully, yeah.
Meantime, Tesla among the first of the Mag 7 to report this week. The stock up nearly 60% since the November election. Joining us right now is Tim Higgins, the Wall Street Journal business columnist and a CNBC contributor. Good morning to you, Tim. I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to watch to understand what's going on, especially given that Elon Musk has decamped to basically run Tesla from the White House.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the top questions that investors have is just how much time is he going to be spending focused on Tesla in the months and years to come now that he's spending so much time in the swamp, if you will.
And what do you think the answer is, and how do you imagine it's going to impact the numbers one way or the other? I mean, clearly it's impacted the stock price in a very positive way.
Yeah, you know, I don't expect a lot of clarity. You know, people who are invested in Tesla know kind of at this point that they don't get Elon Musk exclusively on Valentine's Day. I know he's a guy with a lot of companies, and now this is an extra job. I think what they're probably looking for is what they're always looking for is kind of the tone of his excitement for the months ahead. Is he optimistic that Tesla can return to growth, that kind of growth that has fueled that stock price for so many years? Or is he cautious and worried about the months ahead, which would be very negative, likely on the stock? Remember, this is a growth story. This is a growth stock. And Tesla has not been growing. Last year, deliveries fell for the first time, and that is unnerving for a lot of folks. And likely, you know, a lot of attention will be on, you know, will Tesla grow 20, 30% this year, as Elon said last year?
In terms of full self-driving, how important is that piece of this versus, you know, there's been talk about, are they going to redesign the actual vehicles, which obviously have not been at least fundamentally redesigned in quite some time?
Yeah, self-driving is the kind of story of the stock. Part of the belief why the stock has gone up so high since Trump won is this idea that Tesla will perhaps benefit, and the way it would benefit with Elon's close relationship with the White House is in the realm of self-driving, that technology that allows the car to drive itself. There are some regulatory questions. The states tend to kind of police this area. Elon has talked about the importance of perhaps having a federal solution to allowing this technology to roll out in an easier fashion. That's definitely one of the questions that I think is out there, and people will be looking for any kind of color in that area. But the other part of it is Tesla has to show that it can actually deploy this kind of technology.
So where are you on the robotaxi front? I mean, clearly, it's being deployed in a whole bunch of cities now. Some of it's pretty remarkable, I have to say. But there is this question mark of, you know, will you be able to buy a Tesla and effectively put it on an Uber network and turn it into a robotaxi? It's even something we talked to Derek Khosrowshahi about in Davos. And he seemed, you know, for so long the timeline was always, you know, 2 or 3 years out. He even said he still thinks it's so the fundamental change may not come for another 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, if you look in San Francisco, where I am, you see these self-driving cars, these Waymos, on a regular basis. So it is technology that is real now. You know, a few years ago when you and I were talking about this, it was still on the horizon. It is something that I could go out and do now. But we haven't seen Tesla kind of get into the same kind of operational aspect that we've seen Waymo do. And that's probably why some people think it's still going to be years away before this becomes technology that really throws the driver out universally across the country, because in the back end, there's still a lot of operational things. Waymo has people kind of monitoring these cars, stepping in when needed with various technologies. There's cleanings, there's charging these cars. So it's not as simple as just putting a robot on and just letting it go.
Straight up, since you've been in the Waymo cars, you spent a lot of time, I think, in and studying these Tesla vehicles. Tesla obviously still does it all with cameras, no LiDAR, which is sort of these lasers going around. Obviously, Waymo does. Who does it better, straight up?
Well, right now, the answer would be Waymo, because they're the only ones that are operating robot taxis for the public.
And therefore, you think that even the technology that Tesla has, it's not in the same league?
Well, that's
because I think there's some people who think that it is, and even better. I've heard other people say they think Tesla's even more advanced than Waymo. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if that's true either. Time will tell because we haven't yet seen them deploy that technology. So if we're asking who's best in the world right now, well, Waymo is demonstrating that they can operate these vehicles as a business on the roadways. Tesla has talked a lot about it. There's a lot of excitement about the technology and the way they are doing it. There's a lot of reasons why it could potentially leapfrog a Waymo, but it gets down to the proofs in the pudding, and Tesla doesn't have a robot taxi at this point.
One last question, robots. They say that 2025 is supposed to be the year of robots. Between AI and finally getting robotics going, Elon was early on robots. We've seen a number of different demos with robots. How far out is that? And is that part of the bet?
Yeah, that's part of the gamble here on Tesla, that is going to be a huge opportunity for them, a huge market in the future. A lot of interest in these early ones that he said are going to go into production this year to see what they can do, what the cost of those is going to be. It's all going to be about the functionality, as it always is. And that is kind of one of the big questions that I think is hanging over this is what can they actually do?
Okay. Tim, it's great to see you. We'll see what those numbers look like, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, highlights from the first press briefing from the new White House press secretary. That is next. And later, don't miss our interview with LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman on everything from artificial intelligence to politics. Squawk Box will be right back.
How's the quarter coming along, Kate? He thinks your name is Kate and hates when people correct him.
Pretty great.
Define pretty great.
We added Coupa's AI-powered total spend management platform, so we're finding new efficiencies and multiplying margins.
So you can mind your business.
So you can mind your business.
No, that's not what I meant.
You all should be laughing harder.
At Tractor Supply, we understand that out here, no 2 days are the same. Some days start early, others end a little late. Some days you're taking things a step at a time, others you're just stepping away from it all. Some days you're caring for your property, others your family. Either way, you're ready for whatever comes next. At Tractor Supply, we'll help you make the most of life out here, no matter how you live it. Tractor Supply, for life out here.
At Public.com, you can earn an industry-leading 4.1% APY with a high-yield cash account. There are no fees, minimums, or maximums either. It's just 4.1% APY, straight up with no strings attached. Plus, you get up to $5 million FDIC insurance. Put your cash to work. Earn an industry-leading 4.1% APY with a high-yield cash account. Only at Public.com.
I fundamentally believe if we don't disrupt, we will be disrupted. There is a clear need for products that are going to make people safer, that are going to make environments better. That can be good for business, good for people, and good for the planet all at the same time.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, but something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
Did you know millions of people are getting prescriptions online for insomnia, sexual health, and GLP-1 weight loss?
I've lost 45 pounds so far, and now life is more enjoyable.
RexMD.com has made getting prescriptions fast and easy. RexMD can also help with insomnia.
I slept through the whole night, got up, ready to go for the day.
And RexMD can improve your sexual health.
I felt like a young man again. My wife is happier. I am definitely much happier.
Get started today with a prescription that's right for you at RexMD.com.
Grandpa and I used to work on this together, and when I'm gone, I want you to have it.
Doesn't count. What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com and make it count.
White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt yesterday gave her first briefing since President Trump took office. She said the administration was opening the briefing room for new media outlets, including bloggers, podcasters, and social media influencers. As part of the briefing, she read a statement from the president about last year's spate of drone sightings in New Jersey. Trump said the drones were authorized to be flown by the FAA and said that many were flown by private individuals for recreational purposes. He said, quote, "This was not the enemy."
Phew.
Reassuring, yeah.
Cleared up. Coming up, we'll talk to an analyst about Starbucks earnings and the progress in its turnaround plan. That's next. Plus, NASDAQ set to report. We'll bring you the numbers and a first on CNBC interview with CEO Adina Friedman. Squawk Box will be right back.
Ready for the big meeting?
I have to write this project plan.
I just need to reply to 40 emails.
Every day, your team gets sucked into endless writing tasks. And every day, hours disappear for everyone, except Pam. Hey, Pam. Because Pam uses Grammarly's AI to write in a few clicks, not a few hours. It's one seamless experience everywhere. And it works for the whole enterprise. That's why 70,000 teams trust Grammarly.
I was lost in the dark.
Grammarly for Business. Enterprise-ready AI.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM. I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
Meet Venue on the NYSE American, symbol VENU, disrupting a multi-billion-dollar live music industry. Venue owns and operates upscale music venues, outdoor amphitheaters with 7 revenue sources, $166 million in assets, luxury suite sales of $77 million in 2024, $200 million expected in 2025, 56% year-over-year growth. Venue on the NYSE American, VENU.
Here you go.
Is there any way to get a better price on this?
Have you checked Single Care? Whenever my customers ask how to get a better price on their meds, I tell them about Single Care. It's a free app accepted at pharmacies nationwide.
Before I pick up my prescription, I always check the Single Care price.
It's quick, easy, and totally free to use.
Single Care can literally beat my insurance copay.
You just search for your prescription and show your Single Care coupon at the pharmacy.
So I just show the coupon and get this price?
That's right. Go to singlecare.com and start saving today.
Introducing Aztec Minerals, listed on the OTCQB and the Toronto Venture Exchange. Gold and silver prices have surged to multi-decade highs, creating a strong backdrop for precious metals exploration. Aztec Minerals is drilling in Tombstone, Arizona, a historic high-grade silver and gold mining district with significant expansion potential, with additional drill results expected soon. And having private ownership of both surface and mineral rights, Aztec Minerals is positioned for growth. Symbol AZZTF on the OTCQB and AZT on the Toronto Venture Exchange.
We empower those who act, those who see the correlation between predictability and probability, those who manage risk by anticipating each movement, flawless execution, timing, and accuracy. Identify the goal, match power with precision, reach new heights. CME Group, where risk meets opportunity.
A new administration, new Fed strategies. Could the Trump agenda impact inflation? And the Fed's next move? Fed Chair Powell's crucial remarks and message to investors. Power Lunch, today 2 Eastern, CNBC.
Starbucks reporting better than expected earnings and revenue, but same-store sales declined for the 4th straight quarter. Joining us now, Citi restaurant analyst John Tower. John, thank you for being here. So this was the first quarter under the new CEO, Brian Niccol. How do you think he's doing?
He's doing well. I mean, considering the task ahead of him, it's going to take a long time to get this business going in the proper direction again, both in the U.S. and across the globe. And there's signs and evidence that it's working in terms of getting some sales progression in the U.S. and customer satisfaction higher, and importantly, employee engagement and employee satisfaction higher. So there's signs of progress. It still looks like it's going to take a long time to kind of normalize. And importantly, it's going to cost a lot of money. And I think that's kind of the key message from last night is they haven't settled on the exact amount it's going to cost across the different pieces of their business, but it's going to cost a lot.
Yeah. And do you think investors have patience for this? Because, you know, as you mentioned, the turnaround will take time. It will be costly. Do you risk kind of losing the attention of investors who have been kind of through this volatility over the last few years?
As long as he continues to deliver upon his promises, which include, you know, getting the average transaction down to about 4 minutes or less in the U.S., you know, and doesn't disrupt, frankly, the labor model too much for the employees, I do think that investors will have some patience here. But look, as we've seen in the past across the whole landscape of restaurants, as long as sales are progressing in the right direction, then investors will give them time. When and if sales begin to, you know, stumble a little bit, whether within their control or outside of their control, there will be bigger questions, and that's when the stock likely begins to come under a little bit of pressure.
What do you think they should do with the business in China? And do you think the best capital optimization is maintaining that presence there?
It's a great question. We've done some work behind it. It doesn't look like there's going to be a ton of value creation if they were to say, go license it or turn it into a joint venture. All that being said, it likely makes a lot of sense for them to focus the majority of their energy and capital on the U.S. and perhaps other markets that we're not quite aware of today that might provide greater opportunity over the long term. The volatility in that market and frankly, the competitive intrusion over the past 5+ years has really diminished, at least from the outside, what appears to be the opportunity for the brand in that market over the next several years. And I don't think investors really want to hang on for that ride using company capital. They'd much rather have a joint venture model or some sort of licensed agreement in that market such that, you know, you're just clipping cash flow rather than having to deal with the ongoing EBIT swings.
Yeah, not to mention the geopolitical implications of, you know, potential
Right.
tariffs and retaliatory tariffs and,
Exactly.
you know, the degradation of American brands that are kind of going through those trade spats if that ultimately comes to fruition. But speaking of tariff squabbles, we did see a very brief spat with Colombia over the weekend. Longer term, though, are you concerned that the trade relations worldwide could lead to higher coffee prices that could cut into the margins of Starbucks? Is that something that you've been studying and are concerned about as you model out this company?
Yeah, look, they spoke last night to the current impact from coffee prices, and they have a decent amount of inventory, at least to work their way through the fiscal second quarter here. They said it was going to be about a roughly penny headwind to their earnings right now. Beyond that, it's a bit of an open question mark. It's not a huge piece of the puzzle, at least from the store level operations. However, they also have coffee in the grocery aisle, and that's probably where consumers are going to see it the most. They have partnerships there, and they're likely going to pass along pricing. They're expecting in that case that volumes in the grocery channel are likely going to fall for them as that pricing goes through. Beyond that, some work we did going into this quarter suggested that the current rise in C prices was something like a $190 million headwind to their EBIT over the next 12 months. They wouldn't bless that last night, but it does seem like it's going to be a pressure. And the company's committed to holding the line on pricing at their stores for fiscal 25. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing act from a profitability standpoint if they stick to their guns of holding to no pricing in 25. And what that even, again, means for fiscal 26, because zooming out, you know, one of our takes is that the pricing and the affordability for the average consumer has been an issue here for the brand. And if you have to take pricing again in the next 12 months or so to offset some of this inflation, that's likely sending the wrong signal to the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be a headwind for that turnaround effort there. John, thank you. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. A quick programming note. Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol will be on Squawk on the Street for an exclusive interview at 9 a.m. Eastern Time today.
It is literally 7 a.m. We don't usually hit it exactly like this. It's 7 a.m. on the East Coast. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin, along with Leslie Picker and Mike Santoli. Joe and Becky are off today. I've got so many stories to tell you about, though. A federal judge now pausing an order by the Trump administration that would have frozen existing federal grants and loans until agencies vetted them. The judge's ruling coming just minutes before the freezing order was set to take effect. That was going to happen at 5 p.m. yesterday and lasts until Monday. That's pending some more hearings, so we'll keep our eyes on that. The Trump administration's order is part of an effort to cut spending that does not comply with his efforts to purge what he calls, quote, woke ideology from government programs. Meantime, we were watching Apple supplier Qorvo after its latest earnings report. The stock under some pressure this morning after reporting better than expected quarterly results, but investors seem to be focused on some of the comments from the company's CEO. He was warning of weakness in smartphone parts. And it is Fed decision day. Expectations are the central bank will keep rates unchanged, not moving anything around, thanks to continued strength in the labor market and some progress on inflation. The rate announcement is at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and of course we will be waiting to see whether President Trump has any comments about that, given his efforts to persuade or maybe influence or jawbone or something else
demand
the Fed to lower those rates. Take a look at futures right now. We're looking at some green on the screen. The Dow, which was in the red marginally just last hour, now up about 10 points. You're looking at the NASDAQ up about 84 points. The S&P 500 looking to open about 5 points higher. I want to get straight over to Dom Chu. He's got a look at this morning's pre-market movements. Dom.
Hey, good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Leslie. Good morning, Mike. So let's start off with shares of Alibaba moving higher as the Chinese tech giant releases a new AI model. What else? On this, the Lunar New Year, claiming to surpass DeepSeek's latest update across several major benchmarks. Now, Alibaba is saying that the Qwen 2.5 Max language model is competitive even with AI products from OpenAI and Meta platforms as well. So heating up an already contentious AI race between companies and, of course, China and the U.S. So Alibaba shares up roughly 2 3/4%. Checking on cybersecurity stocks rallying this week, standing out from that DeepSeek market meltdown as security concerns take center stage in the U.S.-China AI arms race. CrowdStrike coming off all-time highs, but giving back some of those gains this morning. But CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, Zscaler, Fortinet, Okta, all names within that ecosystem that will be a big focus given all of the focus on AI. And then ASML shares are surging as the chip equipment company posts a huge jump in its net bookings for the quarter, signaling that that AI chip demand shows no signs of actually slowing down, even as chip stocks tumble over the course of the past few days. The chip equipment stock was hit hard by DeepSeek and had struggled with the past year with slowing chip sales, but ASML CEO is telling CNBC that lower AI costs provide a great opportunity. Those Q4 results brush off DeepSeek's concerns on pricing and power demand as well. So ASML on the European side of things, the U.S.-listed shares up nearly 6%, Andrew. I'll send things back over to you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Fascinating.
All right, NASDAQ just reporting results. The company earned 76 cents a share. That's a penny better than estimates. Revenue came in at $1.23 billion, in line with expectations. NASDAQ realized $28 billion of net inflows into the NASDAQ index products during the fourth quarter. NASDAQ CEO Adina Friedman joins us just after the break. And later, a preview of Howard Lutnick's confirmation hearing for Commerce Secretary. Squawk Box will be right back.
The booking app I used didn't have Agent Force, so an AI agent didn't know to move my reservations inside or know what I like to eat, which is not that.
What's up, my brother?
Oh, hey, bud.
We really needed this rain, right?
Agent Force helps restaurants prevent dining disasters.
Paddle on over.
It's what AI was meant to be.
We got you, brother.
Want the fastest working GLP-1 for half the price? Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with a formula from Eli Lilly. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
We're Mizuho. Sound familiar? Financing the aluminum giant, building better homes? Mizuho was there. The merger of two logistics titans? Also us. Anywhere an industrials company needs a corporate and investment bank, we're there. Mizuho Americas.
Thank you for calling. Please hold.
When you talk to your custodian, does it feel like you're not being heard?
Thank you for calling. Please hold.
Now that's better. Trey PMR doesn't have a massive call center. Instead, your calls are answered by real people who know you by name and are empowered to help. Like me. Hey, Chuck, how are you? What can I do for you?
CNBC. Live ambitiously.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
As we age, we get lines, and that's okay, but our makeup needs change. Traditional powdery foundations can make you look worse. They sink into your lines and dry down your skin. We need a foundation that is equal parts skincare and makeup. That's why I created What the Foundation. It's a hybrid product that blends light to medium coverage foundation and tinted moisture balm. It's moisturizing and melts seamlessly into your skin. Learn more at jonesroadbeauty.com.
Small steps, like a tap, a new part of your routine, or a moment for you, can come together to make big changes for your weight loss, hair loss, anxiety, and more. Get a personalized treatment plan 100% online at forhers.com.
At Grainger, we know dealing with the unexpected is part of your job description. And you made a promise to keep the line running, to power through the downpour, to be the one who always gets it done. And our promise is to help you do it with professional-grade supplies for every industry, plus same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. Because you can't predict the future, but with the right partner, you can be prepared for it. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. We are at the NASDAQ, as you know, and the NASDAQ reporting earnings itself this morning. The company earning 76 cents a share. It's a penny better than estimates. Revenue coming in at $1.23 billion. That's in line with expectations. Joining us right now is Adena Friedman, NASDAQ chair and CEO. The stock moving marginally higher, but it's a good report, pretty much across the board. You did telegraph that this is what was going to happen, though, so people aren't, like, going, you know, they're not throwing parties just right now.
Yeah, well, we're really
But you're throwing a party.
Really pleased with the results for the year. And when we think about it, we had 9% growth for the year, 10% growth for the quarter, and it's really been a transformative year for NASDAQ. You know, we had a significant integration of Adenza.
Right.
We've created this new fintech division where we have very deep relationships with the financial industry today to help them solve their biggest risk challenges, to drive capital markets infrastructure into the future. And it's showing up in terms of how we've engaged with our clients and the results. In addition to the fact that we also have great performance in our index business. We had 31% growth in that business. We reached new records in our trading business. 12% growth in the quarter, 4% growth for the year. So overall, you know, every element of NASDAQ, it feels great, and we're growing and we're delivering. And I'm really,
I was going to say,
though,
the financial crime management technology part is just like flying.
Yeah, so we had, again, 22% growth in our financial technology business, our financial crime management business. And that has been, we had a new tier 1 that signed up with us in the quarter. So we're continuing to really grow and expand that business in really cool ways. We've announced that we're going into Europe with that business now, because we're really only in North America today. We have 2,600 clients in North America, but we're now taking that into Europe and
how many other kinds of businesses like that? When you think about, you bolted on a whole bunch of stuff, basically leveraging the relationships that NASDAQ has with so much of not just corporate America, but the rest of the world. How many other kinds of businesses as a platform now do you think you can layer on top of NASDAQ that are either adjacent over time?
Well, first, I think we have an incredible, powerful platform today. So we're really focused on how do we solve the bank's biggest risk challenges. So risk management, regulatory reporting, which sounds boring, but actually very interesting, and the anti-financial crime. How do we drive markets into the future with capital markets technology that works in a modern technology framework? And then how do we help corporates manage their lives as public companies more successfully, drive investors to make smarter asset allocation decisions? So in the spectrum of what we have a lot of growth vectors, and we're obviously showing growth across our platform. I think we are a platform company. We want to make sure that we're delivering that in a way that's very consistent And over time, we'll continue to find new avenues for growth. But right now, we feel great about the growth profile that we have.
Are you, because of that focus, implicitly long regulatory buildup and complexity?
So it's a great question. And actually, no. Because first of all, we believe that a more efficient and effective financial system will drive more liquidity across the markets, into our own markets, into markets around the world. We are a provider of technology to 130 markets around the world. So the more that we can drive liquidity across the world, the better our clients do, the more that they're going to modernize their technology and the more that they're going to partner with us. So, and then banks, if they can grow, instead of having to deal with regulation, which we provide great regulatory technology around it, you know, we basically, I think it's something like 1,000 new rules that we have to integrate into our solution every year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But if they can actually keep more of that capital and drive more earnings, they'll grow more. So they'll go into new asset classes, new geographies. They'll need risk management technology to support that, and we can provide that too. So we look at it as we can be a great partner to them in all environments.
How is your listings pipeline looking? And I ask because we had the Smithfield Foods debut yesterday, which was kind of muted, downsized IPO following the Venture Global IPO last week on a different exchange. But it's kind of same story of a downsized IPO that traded, you know, somewhat modestly in their debut. What are you hearing from prospective listing clients about this revival? Because the first two big deals out of the gate haven't necessarily overwhelmed the buy side.
Well, first of all, every IPO is its own story. And so the buy side is going to make a determination of every single company that they evaluate. But the general theme is that investors finally feel like the general economic environment is a little bit more noble. You know, we have continued resilience in the economy, continued growth, a more normalized inflation environment, and a more normalized interest rate environment. So they're ready to put capital to work. And we've had a lot more companies getting prepared for the public markets with very concrete plans. You know, as opposed to, well, we might go out next year. It's more like, yep, we're thinking about April, we're thinking about June. And so I have to say, it feels very good. It feels like we should have a good year and a very strong year for IPOs this year, as long as the economy stays resilient. So I wouldn't look at two IPOs and say that that's like portends for the entire year. Yeah.
Can we persuade you to weigh in on the AI story of the moment, which is you've been playing around with, I think, Anthropic and OpenAI and some other things like that. But does this change the whole dynamic in terms of how you're thinking about open source models versus closed? Like, how is NASDAQ actually doing this?
Yeah, no, actually, the way that we work is that we work with the cloud providers to, especially, you know, those where we have our solutions already in cloud. So all of our software solutions are in AWS or Google or Microsoft. So we work with them, and we have
Do you have to have all of your solutions in everything because they're all part of the NASDAQ family?
Well, they are part of the NASDAQ.
Right. No, that's why
we
I
work
said
with our cloud. We tend, you know, we like to work with people who work with us.
Right.
But we do ultimately, they are incredible. I mean, in terms of, frankly, let's be honest. I mean, they're all incredible platforms that provide a lot of great capabilities. So when we are working with models, we have a governance structure where we will do a lot of diligence on every model that we make available to our employees and to make available in our solutions. We then work with the cloud providers to make those models available to us. And we do work with both open source and proprietary models, but we do a lot of work ahead of time. Then once we're able to use them, then we actually evaluate which one is the best one for the use case that we need. And so we actually, you know, it could be different. You know, certain models do better, you know, work better with certain data with certain use cases. So we'll actually evaluate it for the use case. We'll compare the models in terms of speed and results.
Are you now
and
expecting all of this to come down in price, though, like crazy levels because of what we're seeing with the DeepSeek situation?
We've already seen a massive reduction in price. I mean, it's been an incredible reduction in price just over the last 2 years in terms of these models. So I would have to say it's already, the cost curve is already coming down. I'm a big believer in competition, and I'm a big believer in American innovation. So I do think that this entire, this is the dawn of a new era of technology. There are going to be a lot of new players that come in. There's going to be a lot of new innovation that kind of drives change, but every industry is going to benefit. Every industry is going to look at this as a way to drive productivity and earnings. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for everyone.
And we're going to all have agents that are going to trade for us. Is that how this is going to work?
I keep kind of trying to struggle with, like, how is this different than software always gets faster and smarter? I mean, is it just that accelerated?
Yeah, I mean, it is accelerated. That is one of the big differences, is that the models are kind of maturing so fast and they're driving new capabilities so quickly that people are, it's like you almost can't keep up with what's happening. But that also is good in terms of having competition because people are going to be really focused on how do they bring the next new thing into the market and make it even better. As an operator, you know, as someone who uses the technology, we are finding a lot of great use cases. So anti-fin crime, you know, we have this way of automating the entire workflow around researching potential bad actors, writing the reports to regulators. We've taken down the time to do that by 90%. So, and then, you know, summarizing board books, kind of looking for new data, you know, finding new things and new insights and making it everyone more efficient. And that's just with the models that have existed already. And then inside our organization, as you said, how do we introduce more agents to help our employees be more efficient? I mean, there's a lot to do, but I mean, you think of it as like the dawn of a new technological age. Sure. And there's going to be a lot of new things coming at us pretty fast, I think.
Sure. Dina, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the earnings.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Congressman Jim Himes joins us to talk tariffs, taxes, and yesterday's confusion about state Medicaid at those agencies. Squawk Box will be right back.
Time now for today's Aflac trivia question. The American version of the game Bingo uses how many numbers? The answer when Squawk Box returns.
I can't do it! Cut this gap! It's just too big! Bring on the double. Aflac! After my hospital stay, Aflac helped close the gap by paying me cash for expenses health insurance didn't cover. Nothing covers gaps better than the Aflac duck.
Aflac! Get help with expenses health insurance doesn't cover. Find an agent, get a quote at Aflac.com. You do look like me.
It's not about looking like you've got it all together. It's about feeling like you do. Make our new sugar-free your everyday sidekick. Own your ritual your way with Liquid IV.
The all-new GoDaddy Aero helps you get your business online in minutes with the power of AI. With the perfect name, a great logo, and a beautiful website. Just start with a domain, a few clicks, and you're in business. Make now the future at GoDaddy.com/Aero.
The most challenging engineering project in the history of the human race is our nation.
Golf has never been closer to the heart of this country. Straight Down exists thanks to American manufacturing and movement to celebrate all things American-made. We love this game and we love this country. Join us on this journey to bring back American-made.
Meet Venue on the NYSE American, symbol VENU, disrupting a multi-billion-dollar live music industry. Venue owns and operates upscale music venues, outdoor amphitheaters with 7 revenue sources, $166 million in assets, luxury suite sales of $77 million in 2024, $200 million expected in 2025, 56% year-over-year growth. Venue on the NYSE American, VENU.
On a $100,000 margin loan, Interactive Brokers charges just 5.83%. Do you know how much your broker charges? Fidelity and Schwab charge over 1.5 times as much. E-Trade is even higher. Your account to Interactive Brokers and save at least $5,200, or much more if you're trading big bucks.
It's not just about the ticket sales. It's maintaining that connectivity with her fans.
The power of a fan base.
She's built this billion-dollar brand.
She's able to do that in a pretty unique way.
The Swift Effect, Part 2, tonight, 10 Eastern, CNBC. And now the answer to today's Aflac trivia question. The American version of the game Bingo uses how many numbers? The answer? 75. The United Kingdom version uses 90 numbers.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Joining us right now to talk about tariffs, trade, President Trump's executive orders, and so much more. Joining us right now is Democratic Congressman of Connecticut, Jim Himes. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you. There's a lot that's happened. I don't know if can you even keep up?
Can't keep up.
You know what? Actually, here's where I want to start. What do you just real quick, what do you make of the buyouts? Because I think that's actually something that a lot of federal workers are waking up this morning trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, whether they're supposed to go to the office, whether they're supposed to resign. If they resign, are they really going to get paid? If they don't resign, are they going to get fired anyway? 6 months from now, what do you think is supposed to happen here?
That we're watching right now. On the one hand, just the sheer volume and audacity of it is unbelievable. But then there's a serious side to this, too. As Senator Tim Kaine said yesterday, there is no authorization for this program. There is no money for this program. And with no money, there is no program. And so what worries me right now is the sort of human toll, which is that a lot of guys maybe in the federal government who are 2 years from retirement say that's a great plan and take it, but there's no money.
And so it's fake. You think it's vaporware?
I think it's fake. Yeah. I mean, again, this kind of program would require funds, and this is not a line item in the federal veto. So what's going on here? Do they not know that? That's possible. They've done other illegal things. Or is it just that they're trying to sort of create this sense of uncertainty in this bureaucracy?
Can you
that they
explain this? And this is that I'm just trying to grapple with. And I try to say this as apolitically as possible. So we had Ted Cruz on a couple days ago, and we were talking about the law and just people. By the way, he's a lawyer. You said people that this president's doing illegal things. We were looking at, for example, this idea that the president had fired these inspector generals, which, by the way, I'm not suggesting he's not the executive and he can't do that. The question is, the law the law is that you have to provide 30 days of notice to Congress, and there's specific things you have to do. And then if you don't do them, you're breaking the law. What is happening insofar as, not Democrats screaming about it, because some Democrats are, but the Republicans that that you trust, that you respect, who for whatever reason don't seem to be willing to raise their hand at this moment? And I'm just curious, just as a human, what you think of that.
Yeah, look, Donald Trump is at his peak popularity right now. In fact, some early polling indicates that his negatives have gone up in 1 week, right? That's probably chaos. That's probably, concern about the fact that organizations all over the country right now are not getting their promised federal funds. But he's at his peak political power right now. And as a consequence, there are very few, if any, Republicans who are willing to get in his way right now, even though every single Republican, Ted Cruz especially, understands that the 14th Amendment is pretty clear, that you can't just say, sorry, no 14th Amendment, this is the birthright citizenship. You can be a 6th grade civics student and know that Congress has the power of the purse.
Are there examples, by the way, where Democratic presidents have done things that ultimately have gone to court where it's proven that they were doing things that are illegal?
Of course, every president does it.
Well, the student loan forgiveness, for example.
And so that's where I was going with this. It was a little bit of a setup of a question, but there are presidents that have done things that have gone beyond the law, and part of what they do is they try to stretch the law. And the question is how the American citizenry is supposed to think about that.
Yeah, so every president tries to expand their presidential power and gets knocked back by the Supreme Court or by the Congress. What's different about this is that this isn't even close. I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read the first line of the 14th Amendment and tell that the president's birthright citizenship is contrary to the Constitution. And the other thing that's different is traditionally presidents have said, okay, Supreme Court said what I did is unconstitutional. Yes, sir, I abide by that ruling. What we're hearing from the MAGA people, the Trump people, is that, who are these courts anyway? That gets you into kind of constitutional crisis. If they ignore rulings of the court, if they slag the courts in a way that further erodes their confidence, I think that's the big difference.
When it comes to the remaining cabinet proposals, are there people you have concerns about, not concerns about? You think they all sail through? What do you think happens?
Yeah, sure. I mean, by and large, ironically, for a populist president who's standing up for the common man, he has populated his economic team with Wall Street guys, Bessent, et cetera. Now, these are guys who at least know what they're doing, right? You may disagree with them politically, but they know what they're doing. I actually think the economy is in relatively good hands with those guys.
Can I just ask you, because you just said something, they know what they're doing. Do you think the Democrats and the Biden administration made a mistake in the last term by having people who were not part of the private sector? Is that something you think
they didn't have
is a
enough
legitimate
people.
critique?
Yeah, they didn't have enough. Look, I think a good administration will typically have people who are very comfortable and knowledgeable about the private sector. I was in the private sector for 12 years, right? That's a huge advantage for me as I think about regulation in the financial world. So, yeah, I think the right thing is a mix, and I think it's fair to say that the Biden administration was dismissive of people with private sector experience. So again, you asked about the nominees.
Right.
On the one hand, you know, Jay Clayton as Southern District of New York Attorney General, that's probably the best appointment you can make. I'm very happy with the CIA director who I spoke with yesterday. We're former colleagues. On the other end of the spectrum, and you know, I suppose we could have an argument about this, but there is no argument. Kash Patel at FBI. Here's a guy who has promised to use the tools of the federal police force to prosecute political opponents. No law enforcement experience. So there's a spectrum of people who I think are qualified and good.
Where do you land on
people who are not.
RFK, which is, of course, the grilling starts today in the Senate?
Yeah, look, I don't know RFK. Healthcare is not my field. There is nothing about this nomination, a guy who's sort of promoted, obviously rebutted concerns about autism coming out of vaccines. There's nothing about this guy that feels like he has the prudence and care and experience, but, you know, not my field. The interesting question is, how does the Senate react? You know, this country has always been about checks and balances and a balance of power. You know, if guys like Kash Patel and Robert Kennedy just sail through, what you know is that the Senate is a wholly owned subsidiary of Donald Trump, and that's a weird world to be in.
You mentioned financial regulation, and I know this is your forte as well as a former Goldman Sachs executive. There has been this notion that under the Trump 2.0, we'll see these sweeping deregulatory actions take place, namely as it pertains to capital rules, as it pertains to the ability for some of their customers to transact through antitrust. What do you see transpiring? Do you feel like in the halls of Congress there is a will to have this deregulatory regime that so many people in the market are expecting?
Yeah, you know, interesting question. On financial regulation, that's a tough question. There's always a pendulum, right? There's always a deregulatory moment, as there was, say, in 2002, 2003, followed by a 2007, 2008 major meltdown because people realized, holy smokes, the regulation wasn't what we needed. So that pendulum swings. What's interesting about right now, Democrats speaking here, is that we are realizing on my side of the aisle that the regulation that prevents bridges from being built rapidly, that prevents the electrical network, which we need to triple in size, that the regulations that over the decades, whether they're environmental, being respectful of historical, stuff, being respectful of Native American kind of stuff, that all of these things together have resulted in a government that can no longer build anything, or if they do it over 20 and 30 years. That has implications for things that we care about, like actually building out an electrical economy, building out the grid, and it has fundamental implications for people who say, you know what, government can do some good stuff for you, right? We can build the interstate highway system. Today, it's almost hard for government to deliver. So guys like me get excited about the possibility of permitting reform and what that might mean for building stuff that actually makes people's lives better.
I have two quick questions. I know we're going to run out of time. TikTok, do you have a view? I mean, I think, by the way, companies right now don't know what to do. So Apple and Google say, I can't keep it on the phone because they're scared. They say the law is the law, and Tom Cotton's out there saying, if you do this, we're coming after you, meaning if you keep it on the phone, we'll keep it. But Oracle and Akamai are still operating this because the president has said, disregard the law, folks. Actually, I have 75 days to make a deal, and I'm going to. Therefore, you're protected. Are they protected? What should they be doing?
Yeah, look, it's chaos. It's chaos. And start with where I am. I voted against banning TikTok. I'm the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee. I know exactly what the Chinese are doing and can doing. But it was inconceivable to me that the federal government, maybe for the first time in our history, would tell millions of Americans, you don't get to see this media platform.
But
So
you voted against it. You voted against
the ban. Exactly.
So you did not think the ban was right?
I did not think the ban was consistent with freedom of the press and the idea that citizens should have access to the information that they want.
Which also suggests to me that you do not think that TikTok is being used, at least in this moment, by the CCP in untoward ways.
It's not.
It's
Full
not.
stop. It's
Full
not.
stop.
It's not. By the way, the government admits this in their argument to the Supreme Court. They say it's a potential threat.
Right.
And they're not wrong about that. But my view is that if you're going to tell, if the federal government is going to tell American citizens, you don't get to read this, it better not be a potential threat. It better be a clear and present danger, a real threat.
I've been making this argument, by the way, for months. I get killed by the audience, but I'm so. But you actually know. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I know it is a potential threat, but there is
not
no
one
example.
immediate.
There is no example of the CCP going to TikTok saying, "Give us this information," or going to TikTok and saying, "Hey, show Jim Himes in Connecticut this image." Doesn't happen. Could happen.
Save the tape, folks. Jim Himes. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, the Fed meeting for the first time since President Trump's election, well, since his inauguration. We'll have a preview of what to expect. Futures right now showing modest follow through to the upside only on the NASDAQ right now. The S&P just about flat. It's down about 0.5% week to date. Squawk Box will be right back.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM. I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
In a rapidly expanding $21 billion market, Laser Photonics, NASDAQ LASE, is a world-class manufacturer and R&D powerhouse built on 40 years of innovation, developing state-of-the-art technology for laser drilling, time-release pharmaceuticals, and pioneering counter-drone laser systems to neutralize aerial threats and protect critical defense operations. LASE delivers cutting-edge technologies across diverse industries, creating solutions that solve today's challenges and prepare for tomorrow's opportunities. Laser Photonics, thinking generations ahead.
So you started a small business thinking, I got this. Then comes the bookkeeping and you think, I'll catch up later. But later turns into never. Now your books are behind, but they don't have to be. Call Zendu, know your numbers, lose the stress, no more excuses, just real bookkeeping. Zendu, the official bookkeeper and accountant for small businesses.
At University of Maryland Global Campus, getting a bachelor's degree doesn't have to mean starting from scratch. Here, you can earn up to 90 undergraduate credits for relevant experience. What will your next success be?
Experience the power of CNBC Pro. All new and linked to your brokerage accounts. Become a smarter investor with the power of CNBC Pro. Go to cnbc.com/getpro now.
I'm Bobby Brown, and I started Jones Road because I wasn't done. Jones Road is a modern approach to my beauty philosophy. Clean, good-for-you products that are versatile and easy to use. Learn more at jonesroadbeauty.com.
Build the pool yourself. What could go wrong?
Some things are better left to a professional. Like when it comes to finding financial advisors. So take the free quiz, then you'll be matched with up to 3 vetted fiduciary financial advisors at smartasset.com.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
It's a hard conversation to have. When you die, this is what's going to happen.
Trust and will makes it really easy and succinct for people to go out there, create their estate plan. It's such an important thing to have. The things and the people that you care about are taken care of.
Create your estate plan at trustandwill.com.
Coming up, a preview of what investors can expect from the Fed this afternoon. And then we'll talk autos, tariffs, and more with the CEO of Group 1, one of the nation's largest car dealership groups. Squawk Box will be right back.
Discovering innovation today helps drive growth tomorrow. As a leading global asset manager, PGIM has established a track record of helping investors capitalize on growth opportunities. PGIM Investments, shaping tomorrow, today.
Sometimes investing can feel so all over the place. That's why Public.com created one place for it all. One place where you can invest in almost everything, like stocks, options, bonds, and crypto. You can even lock in a 6% or higher yield, because it's the one place where you can build your portfolio the way you want. All your investing in one place. Get up to $10,000 when you transfer an account to Public.com.
Meet Edible Garden, symbol EDBL on the NASDAQ, a leader in fresh and sustainable, better-for-you food production. Just announced an LOI to merge with Europe's Narayan Group, a game-changing merger that would make their products available in over 75,000 stores globally, projecting 2025 combined revenue of $60 million in a market expected to grow to $241 billion by 2028. Edible Garden on the NASDAQ, undiscovered until now. Stock symbol EDBL.
My clients deserve someone who understands their world. someone who listens.
Who has their best financial interest at the center of every decision.
Our business is built around being responsive to our clients' ever-changing needs.
As an advisor,
as their RA custody services provider, I see my clients' success as my own.
Because when they grow,
we grow with them. For over 25 years, we've been committed to RIAs.
And that's why I chose Trade PMR.
When you use Point Me, you need fewer points for every trip, like 50 to 90% less than your credit card travel portal. So a round-trip flight to Italy that may have cost 150,000 points drops to just 35,000 points for the same exact flight. Search with Point Me.
I decided to go with Thrope for GLP-1s because dealing with insurance is always sort of nerve-wracking. Having the team at Roe help me navigate the insurance was a huge relief.
To see if you qualify, go to roe.co/TV.
No application fee if you apply by February 12th at University of Maryland Global Campus, offering online and hybrid courses and lifetime career services. Learn about our more than 135 degrees and certificates at umgc.edu.
Frontier is making another attempt at a deal for rival discount airline Spirit. In a letter to Spirit, Frontier said it believes the transaction would generate meaningful value for stakeholders in excess of that generated by the plan currently on file with the bankruptcy court. Spirit filed for bankruptcy in November after years of losses. You see Frontier shares just down modestly on this headline.
New antitrust cop in town.
That's right.
The Fed concludes its two-day meeting today with President Trump giving policymakers a lot to think about when it comes to the economic outlook. Senior economics reporter Steve Leisman joins us now with more. Hey, Steve.
Leslie, yeah, dramatic announcements from the Trump administration in just the past 24 hours have underscored the Fed's apparent stance of waiting for greater clarity on fiscal policy before thinking about additional rate cuts. The Fed already had to weigh the effects of potential tariffs, tax cuts, deregulation, and deportations, but now it has to put into the mix, well, a potential meaningful decline in government spending and some portion of 2 million federal workers looking for jobs in the next several months. We don't know how that plays out. Some of the elements of the Trump policy suite could be disinflationary and could let the Fed keep cutting. Others, for example, tariffs or a strong rebound in capital spending could require the Fed to remain on hold or even hike rates. Compared to how markets price the outlook for rate cuts after the December meeting, futures are now priced for less of a chance of a cut in March, about the same even chance of a May cut, but a greater probability of that first cut this year coming in June and a second one in December. So keys to the Fed outlook today will be whether the Fed Chairman Powell and the statement affirm that the direction of rates is still downward, although at some unknown time period, expresses confidence that inflation is indeed still headed to the 2% target. And then you're going to have this sort of Powell fiscal policy dance around questions he doesn't want to answer, but journalists will be sure to ask him. In this context, it's sort of interesting. President Trump's recent demand that the Fed lower interest rates in Davos is almost the least of Powell's concerns. He can ignore that. What he and the Fed can't ignore is what might be coming down the pike from the Trump administration in the next couple months, or maybe the next couple days, or guys, maybe the next couple hours. Who knows?
Steve, do you think this ultimately pushes into a place where he does respond to it? I mean, it was just last week where Trump said, quote, "I think I know interest rates much better than they do, and I think I know it certainly much better than the one who's primarily in charge of making that decision." I mean, do you expect to hear Chair Powell respond?
I don't. I think that what's happened, Leslie, is that was unusual for a president to make those kinds of statements perhaps before the first Trump administration, and now it's sort of been normalized, and as long as he's not out there sort of tinkering with the makeup of the Fed or otherwise sort of interfering with their ability to make policy, I think Powell has gotten used to it. I think he'll ignore it. And by the way, I don't think anyone argues that the President of the United States doesn't have a right to speak his mind when it comes to interest rates, whether or not that's helpful. Well, that's a subject of another story that needs to be done, which, so there is some research that shows the president talking about all this or meeting with Fed chairs is not necessarily helpful to the inflation process.
And Steve, no dot plot today, right? So you don't have to necessarily, Powell doesn't have to kind of try and corral the disparate views and try to explain the dots. But where do you think he does come down rhetorically on whether he has confidence that inflation is headed where it's supposed to head?
I think he stays where he was, that he still thinks inflation is coming down. Mike, as you know, they might get some help still from the housing data. There's been some private sector rental data that shows that that part of the CPI should still be coming down. There are some comparisons that are going to drop off from that spurt of inflation we had last year that could be helpful to the Fed if we don't get another round of what they call residual seasonality, which is maybe best explained in lay terms as stuff that goes up in the beginning of the year that we didn't expect to go up. That would be the explanation for residual seasonality. But, Mike, you also put your finger on something that's kind of interesting, which is one of the questions to the chair might be, hey, are those dots from last December, are they still good? And he's answered that question in the past. You remember he said, well, you know, if we had to write them down now, they would be different. So that might be one of the questions he gets today, and that might provide some guidance. You know, I'm thinking about like where the risks lay. This could be or should be a quiet meeting when it comes to the market reaction. But, Mike, as you know, the market finds something to trade on in every word that Powell says.
And it's
for sure.
That is true.
All right, Steve, thank you.
Great to see you, sir. When we come back, Group 1 automotive stock sitting now at an all-time high. The company reporting just a short time ago. We're going to talk to the company's CEO about the auto business, also tariffs and that impact. And yes, the topic du jour, interest rates as well. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
We empower those who act. Those who see the correlation between things above and things below the surface. Those who navigate risk by meeting every turn with a heightened awareness of what's possible. Constant assessment. Determine the best position. Catch the perfect wave. CNE Group, where risk meets opportunity.
What drives your business? Numbers, data, sales? Sure, but it's your people who define your business. That's why Paychex just reinvented the way to find and keep the best people. Smart, streamlined HR technology assisted by AI and our team of HR experts. Everything you need to recruit, motivate, and support your employees. Because your people are your business. Start reinventing your business at paychex.com/TV.
For the most comfortable, luxurious, eco-friendly, and affordable, handcrafted American-made mattresses on the market today. Delivered and set up in any room of your house. Saatva, luxury mattresses made affordable.
Is Cialis Daily better than Viagra? Does it last longer than Viagra? Are sample packs available? Get started with the 30-day sample pack. Generics now only $1 per tablet at rexmd.com/30. Does RexMD really work? Over 85% of patients said, not only does it work, they saw results the very first night. Get started with the 30-day sample pack. Generics now only $1 per tablet at rexmd.com/30.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, but something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
At Grainger, we know the ones who get it done wear a lot of hats. A hard hat is one, problem solver is another. Whatever the job calls for, we're here for you. We're America's trusted source for industrial-grade products, with the scale and resources to deliver and the knowledge to help answer tough product questions. Because we know that hats change, but having access to real people ready to help, combined with fast delivery, never goes out of style. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Should I convert my IRA to a Roth?
You're asking the wrong guy.
You know, financial advice should come from a vetted fiduciary financial advisor who understands your personal financial needs.
That's one intelligent donkey.
You mean a smart ass?
Find an advisor at smartasset.com.
Group 1 Automotive reported stronger than expected results this morning. The auto dealership chain earned $10.04 a share. That easily topped expectations of $9.08. Revenue increased nearly 24% over the prior year to $5.55 billion. Joining us with more on auto sales and the overall industry, Group 1 Automotive President and CEO Daryl Kenningham. Daryl, it's great to have you on. Obviously, your results confirm that it was a very strong finish to the year for auto sales. What do things look like right now? I mean, does it actually have some legs, this trend, or did we see a burst at the end of the year after the election that's going to dissipate?
Well, I feel like we're going to see a pretty good 2025. All the forecasts for the SAR are going to eclipse 16.5 million, some as high as 17 million when the trailing 12 months or so is around 16. So we feel like there's some good growth still there. The margins are healthy. Inventories are in good shape, and feels like the consumer is holding up. And so our OEM partners are also, I think, reacting extremely well to a lot of uncertainty, whether it be political or market, and doing a great job. And I think that's one of the reasons that everybody's seeing really good sales these days.
I did note that in terms of what customers are paying as a percentage of list price, it is on the lower side. Does that mean there's lots of incentives out there, and how does that play through to your results?
Yeah, I think there are some incentives out there, more than we've seen certainly in the last 2 years, and that's helping. And as a percentage of a customer's income, it's back down into historical levels. Whereas the 2 years prior, what we saw was it was a reach for some consumers, and during that period, inventories were very tight. So there was a more difficult decision for customers and also for retailers. But it's much more in balance these days, and we hope that's a good thing. Also, the used car business is critical to the new car business, and used car supply is very tight. So that's also an incentive, honestly, for retailing new cars. So we're all trying to source more used cars in our business these days.
Yeah, sure. That's been an issue, I guess, for some time. How are you thinking about the potential elimination of EV credits and tariffs and everything else that might kind of come in and complicate the supply-demand picture here? Just specifically yesterday, the market had a very adverse reaction to GM's earnings and guidance, which both seem positive, but a lot of questions about potential tariffs and the like.
Yeah, I think, there's so many different things going on right now in terms of changes to tariffs, changes to income tax rates, EV subsidies, potential interest rate changes, and how you factor that in as either an OEM or retailer. I think what you've got to focus on is being able to react quickly, and you've got to be able to serve customers in a way that hits home with them. And I think our OEM partners have done that. I think that the retail community in the automotive industry has certainly done that, because we faced our fair share of challenges over the last 3 years, and I think reacted very quickly. I think we'll have to do the same thing over the next year with all of these the publicity around all the potential changes coming from Washington.
What are you seeing in terms of just customer preference at this point, in terms of, level of, kind of premium packages, EV hybrid, internal combustion, all those things? How are they set up? And also, I guess, how does your portfolio arranged for it?
Hybrid is still very strong and growing. EV is declining a bit. The good thing is the EV inventories are now in line with what seemingly demand is, but it's in the low single digits generally in most of the country. And but customers are still showing a preference for large trucks and SUVs in the United States. And so I think we're seeing balance in our company specifically. We have almost half of our mix is luxury mix, and then we're also very strong in Toyota and Lexus, and that really helps with hybrid and really helps with on the luxury side. Those customers have a little more discretion in what they're buying these days.
For sure. Darryl, really appreciate the time this morning. The stock up a little bit, holding on to a 66% gain over the last year.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Coming up, we got a preview of today's confirmation hearing for Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. We'll discuss that, and then later, you don't want to miss this, a special interview with LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman, one of the OGs of the world of AI. We're going to talk to him about a new book he's got, but we're also going to get into all of the headlines over the past week and a half that have been raised about the world of AI and big tech. Squawk Box, coming right back after this.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM.
I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
Growing your business is easy once you know the moves. With GoDaddy Websites Plus Marketing, you can quickly create a website and AI will customize it for you. Get your business out there and get more customers in here. No sweat. For you anyway. Create a beautiful website in minutes with GoDaddy.
This game to us is something deeper. It's a simple connection to a ball, a club, and a single purpose. It's a release from the noise. A respect to the silence of the course. We love this game because we need this game. Straight Down celebrates the sound of the game.
No matter why you started your business, your goal is to keep on growing. And with the help of financing from Capitus, you can meet all of your business goals. Because at Capitus, we finance the legacy builders, the creators, the freedom chasers, the opportunity seekers. At Capitus, we finance small businesses.
Car, this isn't the way home.
That's right, James. It isn't.
Car, where are we going?
We're here.
The future isn't scary. Not investing in it is.
Car, were you in on this?
Nothing gets by you, James.
NASDAQ 100 Innovators, one ETF. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
No one's going to give you your dreams. You have to roll up your sleeves and work hard to achieve them. Money doesn't make the world go round. Information does. And CNBC is the great economic equalizer because we provide that information so you can make the decisions that are right for you.
Welcome back. President Trump's Commerce Secretary pick, Howard Lutnick, will appear before the Senate Commerce Committee for a confirmation hearing today. Questions about Lutnick's financial holdings and tariff agenda expected to be front and center. Joining us now, Republican Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri. He's a member of the Commerce Committee. Thank you for being here. What was your #1 question for Mr. Lutnick?
Well, I think he's had a long-standing relationship with President Trump. He's had a storied career, of course, with Cantor Fitzgerald, very successful, and everybody knows the story after 9/11 and what he did to support the families who lost loved ones on the day that worked at his firm. So he's had this wealth of information, and I think how he's going to bring that to the Commerce Department. It's a very important department. I think he'll be a close advisor of President Trump. Clearly, as relates to trade policy, that's going to be front and center. But I think Howard's going to do very, very well today. I expect smooth sailing. This will be a committee hearing this week that will go well. I think he's going to have the support. And then you're going to have the other ones, of course, with Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that might get a little bit more attention on the evening news. But this is an important position and really a great American, I think, that stepped up to serve his country here in Howard Lutnick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly important for our audience. And tariffs front and center here as well. We talk about it every day on CNBC. I, too, was born in Missouri, born in St. Louis, and I know that the farming community in the state is quite strong. And I'm curious what your constituents share with you about concerns surrounding tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, and the like, and how you plan to address those with the prospective nominee.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming sentiment in states like Missouri is that we just want to be treated the same way that folks treat us, right? I think that reciprocal policies are important. You know, I think Americans are kind of tired of being treated unfairly by other countries, Europe and particularly China. I think that you just see some of the developments, whether it's DeepSeek or the Panama Canal. One thing those things have in common is we are in this great competition with China to win the 21st century. It's going to be defined by who wins this. They're in space in a meaningful way. They're competing with us in AI. We've never had a competitor like this that's a nuclear peer, that's a military peer, and an economic peer. We've never had that. The Soviet Union wasn't an economic rival. And so I think we're in a real race with China. So the constituents back home, and I think across the country, just want America to be treated fairly and have a trade policy that reflects that.
So do you think tariffs are that trade policy that reflects that? And I ask because it was the Commerce Department that put forth those export controls on advanced chips that ultimately, I mean, it remains to be seen what ultimately happens with DeepSeek and kind of how they were able to do this and at what cost. But there are a lot of questions surrounding export controls and whether those were successful in mitigating the Chinese competitiveness in some of these advanced AI models. And I'm just curious kind of what you think is the appropriate approach as we look to protect U.S. competitiveness in AI.
Well, I think targeted tariffs, Howard's been on your show before and kind of explained his position. I think that's President Trump's position to be targeted about this, widely speaking. I think you saw the impact it can have even this weekend with the Colombian president who refused to take criminals from his own country back. President Trump threatened a 25% tariff and to suspend visa applications, and voila, they came to the table. So I think it's very effective as a negotiation tool, but I also think to level the playing field, it's very important. I think on the chips specifically, that's a national security concern, and I think certainly warranted. We need to build more things like that here. We need to bring our supply chains home to the extent that we can. I think that's all part of this overall trade policy, but I do think tariffs shouldn't be a four-letter word. They're going to be utilized under the Trump administration. I think they're going to be very strategic about it.
Your colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, has been probing Lutnick over ties to Tether, which is a cryptocurrency that allows people to move money anonymously, and therefore it's kind of seen as this go-to cryptocurrency for criminal activities. I'm curious if that's a concern of yours as well.
Well, I think Senator Warren has taken a position. She really wants command and control as it relates to crypto, and that's certainly not where I stand. So, look, she's going to have her questions today for Howard Lutnick, and that's what these committee hearings are for, to sort of air this out, to have questions be asked and answered. She's actually not on the Commerce Committee. I noticed that she's raised those issues. But I think the broader point here is, a centralized command where you have social credit scores as relates to crypto is not a direction we want to go. It's probably where China's headed, but I think America can be the leader in crypto, and that's the direction of this administration.
How can they be the leader in crypto? What do you think this administration needs to do?
Well, I think what you saw was there were these artificial restraints that were put in place under the Biden administration because they were very skeptical. But I don't think you want this sort of, again, sort of centralized crypto bureaucracy here in the United States. Are there going to be regulations? Of course. No one's really arguing against that. But I do think China's headed in the direction where this is also a way to control your population. And I don't think that's sort of the American view of it. And I think President Trump's been pretty clear about that on the campaign trail and now that he's in office.
Broadly speaking, in terms of trade and kind of the more protectionist posture, are you worried at all about inflation or economic growth as a result of those?
No, I think, look, President Trump did this the first go around, and we saw record wage growth. No matter your population, no matter your gender, wages went up for everyone. We were able to actually onshore more production. We saw our dependency on China go from about 22% of imports to about 14% of imports coming from China. That's a good thing. I think COVID exposed some of the vulnerabilities in that supply chain. We're way too reliant on China for pharmaceuticals. We're way too reliant on China for things we need to build jets. to build things that are in our military. So I think having a policy that's smart, that is about fair trade, and you also have additional trade barriers that China puts in place, highly subsidized. They sort of flood the market, dump the product, and copy. I think intellectual property protections are going to be an important part of the discussion too, that Howard Lutnick, I'm sure, will have opinions on. But I think we've got to be smart about it, and I think we have to understand that China is hell-bent on world domination, and our trade policy should reflect that.
All right, Senator Schmidt, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Okay, it is just about 8 a.m. on the East Coast, about 10 seconds before 8 a.m. Genuinely. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin, along with Mike Santoli and Leslie Picker. Joe and Becky are off today. Among today's top stories, it is Fed decision day. The U.S. Central Bank expected to hold interest rates steady. Fed Chair Jay Powell is going to be taking reporters' questions. That's going to happen today at 2:30 Eastern Time. You don't want to miss it. Expect some questions, of course, on Fed independence now that President Trump has taken office, and some of his comments about the Fed and what he wants to see with interest rates. Meantime, Alibaba, the latest company now to claim an AI breakthrough this morning. The Chinese tech giant saying the latest version of its Qwen 2.5 model surpassing a recent release from the new AI darling DeepSeek, as well as advanced models. They're saying they're also beating from OpenAI and Meta. And you can take a look at shares of Alibaba on the back of this news, up about 3.5%. Speaking of DeepSeek, Bloomberg reporting that Microsoft and OpenAI are now looking into whether a group linked to the Chinese AI startup improperly obtained data from OpenAI. President Trump's AI czar, David Sachs, telling Fox News yesterday that there's evidence DeepSeek was developed using data output from OpenAI's models. There's a phrase called distillation. They distill the model, also known as stealing.
Distillation.
Yep, distillation and stealing. So there we are. And we've talked a lot about how a lot of these models may have been
borrowing, repurposing,
distilling a lot of
of ways to
the copyrighted content that had effectively helped the model get created.
Jon Stewart had a joke about this, saying that like the AI job was replaced by AI.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And he did very well. I thought that was great. Did you see it? We should be playing that.
That's a great segment. Let's take a look at futures at this hour. A bit of a mixed picture after a pretty volatile week. And you can see the NASDAQ, the outperformer here, implied to open about 65 points higher. The Treasury complex is, at least yields, a bit lower this morning. The 10-year around 4.52%, the 2-year 4.19%. Let's get to Dom Chu with a look at this morning's pre-market movers. Hey, Dom.
All right, so Leslie, Andrew, Mike, we're checking on earnings this morning. We'll start with shares of T-Mobile US, rising as holiday sales boosted demand for the carrier. The telecommunications provider posting better than expected annual subscriber growth. The firm also issuing some upbeat guidance driven by postpaid customer additions, on demand for premium bundles and whatnot. So T-Mobile US is up 6.5% in the pre-market trade. Then there's defense contractor General Dynamics moving lower despite continued demand for military weapons and equipment. Analysts like Goldman Sachs are downgrading the stock to sell earlier this month, saying that on top of growth concerns, uncertainty around government spending under newly formed Department of Government Efficiency may weigh on the performance there. So General Dynamics, on the back of its report, off about 1.5%. And shares of Chili's parent company, Brinker International, jumping as same-store sales rise 27%, driven by an increase in popularity for its Chili's brand. Advertising and new value meals at the chain bringing in 20% increases in traffic. That's according to what they saw in terms of their overall scheme for the quarter. So Brinker is up 13, almost 14%, Mike. Baby back ribs. I got to think about that now. I'm going to have that jingle stuck in my head. I'll send things back.
Even more than usual, probably up 330% on a one-year basis, Dom. Kind of remarkable for an old name. All right, our next guest says the current market dynamics have created significant valuation dislocations in value-oriented areas of the market. Joining us now is John Murray, CIO and Senior Portfolio Manager at NFJ Investment Group. John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mike.
You know, we could have said this many times over the last couple of years about, the relative value in value type stocks. I wonder what you're picking up from the market's message recently, though, because it's fascinating. Monday, S&P down 1.5%. Most stocks were up. Yesterday, S&P was up 1% just about. Most stocks were down.
Yes.
Fitfully, the market is trying to see if it can make progress without the outright constant leadership of growth and tech.
Sometimes things can be changing below the surface and it's not fully seen yet. I'll make a couple observations. The first is that if you look at last year, very big year for the S&P 500, up 24%, particularly after a big year the year before, and after that drawdown in 2022 of 25%. Momentum as a factor was the single best factor last year that drove the market. The last time we saw momentum that outperformed by that magnitude was in 2000. And that did not spell a great, next chapter for some of those stocks that had been caught up in that. The other time that momentum had a very good performance was in 2007. And I pull out both those because they're both interesting observations. 2007 was the shift of the baton from value to growth. 2000 was growth to value. One more observation I'll make. If you look at what has occurred since the inflation reading July 11 of 2024, okay, value, all the value indexes, mid-value, large value, small value, they're all beating the S&P 500. The NASDAQ is actually trailing the S&P 500 since July. And NVIDIA, as an example of this, is up just 1%. So I do think there are some shifts below the surface that maybe are not fully picked up currently.
Those analogs, though, of 2007 and 2000 show you that those transitions didn't happen quietly. Right? The S&P got cut in half both times.
Correct.
A lot of other things going on around the edges, too. But I wonder if you feel like we can do this, pass the baton at a full run.
Typically, you need to see volatility for the baton to be passed. And I will say that, what you saw on Monday, I think shocked everyone. It was kind of like sticking your finger in a socket and getting electrocuted. No one quite knows what to make of it. What I would say is that if AI catches a cold, there's going to be a lot of sneezing. And there's a lot of areas that are already deeply discounted. I think some differences with some of the previous leadership shifts is you already have a lot of valuation dislocation in the value areas, such as healthcare, such as materials, such as staples. These were all flat last year. These have done nothing in many cases for several years, and you are seeing positive earnings growth out of these areas. One area I'll also point to, which did do very well last year, which looks particularly attractive, is banks. Banks went through their recession in 2023, okay? And they've been re-rating. You now have a steepening yield curve. The Fed has pulled 100 basis points out. We'll see what they do today. The 10-year responded by moving higher. The 10-year went up 100 basis points. You have a steeper yield curve. That's good for banks. They have strong balance sheets. So I think there's a lot lining up in the camp for a dark horse play for value stocks as we look into the back. Well, we're just starting the year. The year's young, but it feels like a lot's already happened.
I would say, in terms of the idea that value is cheaper than it usually is compared to the overall index, in absolute terms, I mean, the S&P value index is at 18 times earnings. It's not like it's in aggregate value seems cheap objectively. It just is way less expensive, I guess, than the very largest growth stocks.
Well, I think it depends. That's one way of looking at it. If you look at price to book, which I think is another way to look, because you have a lot of cyclicals in value, which have earnings that tend to be more volatile based on the economy, like materials, for example, and energy. On price to book, you're back to the levels that you've not seen since 2000. So does that matter? It's an important point. It's something that I think investors should be taking note of, and I do think this is where diversification plays a big role in investors' portfolios. You don't need diversification. We have very concentrated leadership, but that's the time that you should be thinking the most about diversification. The other thing that I would point to is that if you look at small value, I mean, that's trading at 12 times earnings. That's cheap. That's cheap historically. That's cheap absolute. And it is not participated. And you've got these companies out there, Mike, that are like $3 trillion. You got multiple of them. That's the entire market cap of the entire Russell 2000 value. And now you have a shift in the White House where you have potentially a more favorable backdrop for M&A. We've already seen multiple takeouts in the small cap arena. One just yesterday from Bain Capital with Surgery Partners.
Yeah, no doubt there's lots of orphaned parts of the market down cap. We'll see if that changes. John, good to see you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Coming up, a can't-miss interview coming up right after this. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, all about AI and what he thinks could go right with the future. But next, House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith is going to join us on the Trump administration's tax plans and yesterday's funding freeze chaos. We're going to talk all about that when we come back right here on Squawk.
In a world of uncertainty and disruption, how will your investments stay resilient? We've been navigating change for 125 years, always looking forward, anticipating risks, and trusted to manage over $1 trillion in assets worldwide. Solving for the needs of investors today and tomorrow. That's the power of Nuveen.
With Dexcom G7, managing your diabetes just got easier. So, what's your glucose number right now? Good thing you don't need a finger stick. How's all that food affect your glucose? Oh, the answer's on your phone. What if you're hitting low at night? Wow, it can alert you. And you can even track your goals. Manage your diabetes with confidence with Dexcom G7, the most accurate CGM. Learn more at Dexcom.com.
We teach you the right way to develop your own investment strategy.
We're more disciplined in not making irrational decisions. We stick to the strategy and continue to invest and stay long-term.
Go to cnbc.com/join Jim.
Small steps, like a tap, a new part of your routine, or a moment for you, can come together to make big changes for your weight loss, hair loss, anxiety, and more. Get a personalized treatment plan 100% online at forhers.com.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
Look, great blue heron. You know, when I go, I'd like to leave some money to the local bird conservancy.
Oh. Doesn't count.
What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com now and make it count.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. The House Republican retreat in Miami wrapping up today. Lawmakers have been focused on how to bring President Trump's legislative agenda to fruition. A key question, though, whether the GOP wants the package to package its top priorities into one bill or two. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith is with us this morning. We'll go right there. I want you to weigh in. There's obviously a massive debate about whether you put everything in one and hope for the best, whether you break it up, and if you do two, do you get everything? What's your view strategically on this?
Well, Andrew, the president was very clear when he spoke with us that we must deliver on the economic policies that he campaigned on to the American people, and also the border policies and the energy policies that he campaigned to the American people. And they ultimately supported his agenda. That's why they sent a Republican House, Republican Senate, and of course Donald Trump to the White House. So he came to us, the urgency to get this done. And one big, beautiful bill, Andrew, is the quickest and best approach to get as many of the president's economic policies, border policies, and energy policies to his desk in a timely fashion.
What is your sense, though, of just the fault lines, to the extent there are any, within the party as it relates to folks who may be maybe more conservative economically or fiscally than others, who may say, you know what, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna say no?
You know, without a doubt, we definitely have to thread a needle, and it's not going to be easy. Whether, you know, it's 1 or 15 different bills, it's not going to be easy to push it across the finish line. We have the smallest majority in the history of Congress after Elise Stefanik leaves. It will be 217 to 215. If you lose one Republican in Republican priorities, you can't pass the bill. So unity is extremely important. Delivering on the president's promises to the American people is extremely important. Making permanency of Trump's tax cuts, addressing no tax on tips and the other tax provisions that the president campaigned on. We cannot lose one person. When you look at the tax cuts from 2017, Andrew, Andrew, we lost 13 Republicans. We can't lose one.
Well,
so unity is extremely important.
That raises the question, Chairman Smith, just about what these bills need to look like in terms of dealing with the debt and dealing with the deficit. What kind of math is going to be applied to some of this? There's been some arguments already made that the math is going to be different math even. I mean, that's a polite way of saying that the math is not really the math.
Yeah, everyone's going to have to give. We have to look at the realistic budgetary numbers that affect the fiscal health of the United States. We have to look at real border and immigration policies, and we have to look at the real energy policies. All these things are extremely important to all Republicans in the House and the Senate. We just have to thread that needle. People have differences, whether it's various provisions of the tax code. We could talk about SAL. We could talk about the debt and deficits from the members that are really focused on those provisions, but we have to thread the needle, and we all have to give and take. Various members can't have all of what they want. No one's going to have all of what they want. You have to give and take to deliver for the American people.
Can you weigh in, by the way, separately on this email that went out to 2 million federal workers? A lot of confusion, lots of questions. I imagine people even that you know in the government who've been employees of the government for a long time, getting an email basically saying either come back to work or resign. If you can effectively just press reply and press resign in the subject line. How do you feel about that? And what about just all of the questions that it relates to? We had a congressman on earlier who suggested it's unclear whether there's even a budget to pay all these people out in a buyout.
You know, I think it's a very lenient email that the administration is sending out. If only 6% of the 2 million federal employees are showing up to work, that's unacceptable. And that is what is being provided, is that only 6% of 2 million workers. If they don't want to show up to work, they don't need to be working for the American people. The American people deserve federal employees to commit and to sacrifice and to do their best job for the American taxpayer.
Separately, wanted to get your thoughts. We have Reid Hoffman coming on in just a little bit. He's on the board of Microsoft. There's a lot of questions about TikTok, and I was looking at the way you voted on TikTok back in the day. What do you think of this sort of moment that we're in where the law of the land is that this company cannot be operating in the United States? Companies like Google and Apple have decided that they're not going to allow this to operate effectively on their platform, and yet Oracle and companies like Akamai are taking the president at his word that he's going to somehow protect them despite the law later down the road. Who's right?
Well, what you have to look at, part of the provisions of the laws allowed that TikTok could exist if it wasn't owned by the Chinese Communist Party. So if it comes under new ownership, that is a real possibility that they would not be banned in the United States. And there's a huge concern about the involvement of the Chinese Communist Party when it comes to TikTok. And so that has to be addressed in order to
disagree about
allow
that. I think
it to appease the law.
The question, Chairman, is what you think should happen in this particular moment, which is the law has been put into place. The Supreme Court has upheld that law. You know, folks like Tom Cotton are out there saying to the technology companies, if you host this, you've got a problem. And by the way, it's not just a problem today. It's maybe the Democrats come into office, by the way, 4 or 5 years from now and look back at these things, right? That's the concern. If you're a company that you're saying the law is the law, but the president is saying, please disregard the law for now as I try to figure this out.
Andrew, I voted for it. The law is the law. 357, I think, House members voted for this. And the law is also clear. TikTok can be available if it's not owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And that's something that the president's been pushing, is that new investors come in and take ownership of TikTok so it can run effectively in the United States.
Congressman, what is the conversation down there about the president's attempt to just freeze spending that has been authorized by Congress across so many different agencies? Obviously, it caused a lot of confusion and chaos yesterday and in the Medicaid portals and elsewhere. I mean, this is something that obviously is in the law. The money's there, and yet it's not getting spent as dictated.
The president has been crystal clear on how he's freezing spending. He's freezing spending according to what the law requires. For example, the Hyde Amendment says that the money cannot be used for abortion. These are things that he outlined, saying that the money should not be sent if it's violating the Hyde Amendment. Similar with DEI and also the Green New Deal priorities. These are things that were not approved by Congress, but it was approved by the prior administration, and the president is listening to the people who sent him to Washington, saying that money should not go to the Green New Deal, DEI, and to fund abortion.
Chairman Smith, I want to thank you for joining us. We hope to talk to you again very, very soon. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up, former Council of Economic Advisors Chair Jared Bernstein joins us on the Trump economy, or at least what we know of it, in the first week and a half of this administration. Then LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman will be with us for a wide-ranging conversation on AI. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Across the globe, industries are transforming, and businesses need to navigate the changing landscape to stay ahead. When you partner with Barclays, every change leads to a bold possibility. You have the vision, we have the insights, financial solutions, and global perspectives to help you make it real. Barclays Investment Bank, powering possible.
No matter why you started your business, your goal is to keep on growing. And with the help of financing from Capitus, you can meet all of your business goals. Because at Capitus, we finance the legacy builders, the creators, the freedom chasers, the opportunity seekers. At Capitus, we finance small businesses.
Your business needs to hire someone now. So, in addition to managing your business, you have to go through hundreds of resumes and hope for the best. Or you can go and get the best. Introducing Paychex Recruiting Copilot. It uses AI to help find potential candidates from millions of profiles, whether they're looking for a job or not. Then, it helps you get in touch and get them hired. 5 times faster than job postings. Get your own Paychex Recruiting Copilot now at paychex.com/TV.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Roe now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not 1, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at roe.co/TV.
Some people thrive on the edge. We are improving lives by bringing intelligence to the edge. Blaze Edge AI technology, processing critical data with blazing speed, bringing the most sophisticated AI intelligence to computation at the edge. Distinctive efficiency, limitless innovation. Make smart decisions with precision and agility. Now publicly available. Trade today. Blaze. Life on the edge. CNBC. Live ambitiously.
Let's talk AI. AI in China versus AI in the United States.
DeepSeek, one of the companies within China, it's been reported at least that they have a cluster of 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs.
DeepSeek, their model is actually the top performing, or roughly on par with the best American models.
To see the DeepSeek new model, it's super impressive and it's super compute efficient.
We're not just about managing information, we're about supplying digital workers. Now we're making this transformation of digital labor.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Take a look at futures right now. We are off now, about 50 points on the Dow. It had been in the green before. We're actually now off about 62 points. The NASDAQ down about 4 points after also being in the green quite materially. S&P 500 off about 14 points right now.
All right, insurance giant Chubb giving an early indication of the cost of the California wildfires. Chubb said it expects a pre-tax net cost of $1.5 billion to impact its first quarter results. Several estimates have pegged the wildfires as the most expensive ever in the U.S. Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs projected the disaster could cost insurance companies $30 billion in total.
Up next, former Biden administration Council of Economic Advisors Chair Jared Bernstein will join us. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM.
I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
16 million Americans suffer from chronic back pain, the 6th most costly health condition in the U.S. Meet Creative Medical Technology, stock symbol CELZ on the NASDAQ. Creators of StemSpine, a regenerative medicine using stem cells to help fix the multi-billion-dollar chronic back pain problem. StemSpine was shown to be 87% effective at improving mobility and reducing chronic back pain, and that could be worth a fortune. Creative Medical Technology, stock symbol CELZ.
Home. The place where you create those special moments. We celebrate the home and the way you live in it. At 3 Day Blinds, we help you create that special place. And because we know you're busy, we bring the showroom to you at your convenience and provide a design expert to help you find the perfect solution that fits your style and budget. 3 Day Blinds. You'll love the treatment. Call or go online right now to schedule your free in-home design consultation.
A new administration, new Fed strategies. Could the Trump agenda impact inflation? And the Fed's next move? Fed Chair Powell's crucial remarks and message to investors. Power Lunch, today 2 Eastern, CNBC.
I like makeup that makes you look like yourself, but better. Miracle Balm is the center of my beauty philosophy. It gives you moisture, and it only takes a nanosecond to put it on. Learn more at jonesroadbeauty.com.
I never really considered that there were all these harsh chemicals that were going into my biggest organ on a daily basis. Jolie is a filtered shower head, removing chlorine and other contaminants from your shower water, improving on your hair and your skin. Once I started using the Jolie, I noticed that my hair was visibly and to the touch a lot softer. It feels like a very smart decision to make if you're a person who cares about your skin and your hair. When you feel good, you look good.
Build the pool yourself. What could go wrong?
Some things are better left to a professional. Like when it comes to finding financial advisors. So take the free quiz, then you'll be matched with up to 3 vetted fiduciary financial advisors at smartasset.com.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Among today's top business stories, Frontier Airlines is making another attempt at a deal for rival discount airline Spirit, which is currently in bankruptcy. The two carriers were planning to merge in 2022, but JetBlue made a higher offer for Spirit. That deal fell apart last year under legal scrutiny. You see Frontier up about 2.3% on that news. We are also watching Starbucks. After the coffee company reported fourth quarter earnings, same-store sales fell for the 4th consecutive quarter, but by less than analysts had expected. Now, don't miss an exclusive interview with Starbucks CEO next hour on Squawk on the Street. And shares of luxury giant LVMH falling in European trading. Revenue in China lagged and sales declined in several businesses, including fashion, leather goods, and wines and spirits. Those shares off 5.4%. Fellow luxury giant Kering, which owns brands like Gucci and Alexander McQueen, falling in sympathy.
And it's been less than 2 weeks since former President Biden left office. His former chief economist is urging the new administration to be careful in dealing with inflation, saying if the Trump team's instincts are wrong, the costs will be high. Joining us now, former White House Council of Economic Advisors Chair Jared Bernstein. Jared, thank you for being here. So given what you know about the economy, the perch you sat in, the economy that the Trump administration has inherited, what are you most concerned about?
Well, thank you for having me on. I would say I'm most concerned about the kind of uncertainty that's generated by the policy lurching that we've seen over the past few days, along with potential inflationary effects from sweeping tariffs and potentially deportations. I've long been concerned about Fed independence, But I think that the economic team over there, Besant, Kevin Hassett, those are folks I know a bit, especially Kevin. These are good economists, and I think they don't want to see interest rates or inflation go higher. So part of this is a matter of who wins those arguments internally.
And how do you distill kind of the rollout of everything? Because there are certain policies that could factor into the economy a little bit quicker. I'm thinking of, potential tax cuts, for example, but then other areas like deregulation, even tariffs and kind of the back and forth there, a bit more uncertain in how they work their way into the economy. So how do you think about the tug of war between these policies and the overall implication on the economy?
I think there's a much bigger threat from not just tariffs, but again, sweeping tariffs. Targeted tariffs, something we did in the Biden administration and actually the first Trump administration. Targeted tariffs can be potentially useful and effective. Sweeping tariffs used as a kind of proxy for foreign policy, that can be very damaging economically. It's also, I think, problematic geopolitically. Let me say one thing about tax cuts. If the Trump administration extends the Trump tax cuts, there's no fiscal impulse there. That doesn't change the economy's trajectory at all because it just keeps something that's here in place. What it does do is it significantly hurts our fiscal outlook. And that can be a potential problem in the bond market and for interest rates. And I think we've already seen the bond market kind of raise its eyebrow at the fiscal outlook, given some of these potential fiscal paths.
Certainly. Some who are supporters of tariffs have mentioned that they believe they'll be revenue generating. Do you buy that?
I'm skeptical. I mean, even if you take the most optimistic tariff generating numbers we've seen, they pay for less than half of extending the Trump tax cut. So I think those are way too optimistic. One of the things that Trump hopes, I think, is that the tariffs will discourage imports. Well, there goes your revenues. So I would discount some of those numbers.
What do you make of the whole DeepSeek phenomenon that we saw this week and how it exposed essentially the fragility of this AI trade, the potential fragility of AI competitiveness and exceptionalism when it comes to AI? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me answer you first as an economist, which is that if somebody figures out a way to do something that supposedly costs tens or hundreds of billions for tens of millions, that's an unequivocally positive development. Now, add geopolitics and the risk of a potentially problematic country developing a tool that could be difficult for us. Of course, that's in the mix, and I know over there you're understandably concerned about market dynamics. But at least when you get to sort of the economics of technology, if the folks at DeepSeek have figured out a way to do this without sucking up tons of land and energy for data centers, that at least that part strikes me as potentially positive and injecting a level of competitiveness. When we hear these numbers, 65 billion, no, we're going to spend 85 billion. I don't think any of us, except maybe some of the experts, really know what kind of context we're talking about here. I've always thought those numbers seemed kind of inflated, such that it's just a contest to see who could pledge more. So this type of competition could be positive with a definite caveat for geopolitical implications.
Jared, I wonder how you're trying to account for what potentially might happen with deportations and labor market response to this, and how it really filters through to obviously labor supply and things like wages and inflation. And I mean, we talked about rent effects. Obviously, this was a core campaign promise of the president. He's following through. But as somebody who's a scholar of the labor market, what are your main issues or concerns?
Well, the labor market looks to me to be pretty well aligned right now, and that's very important, both in terms of inflation and probably even more so, and topically for today, from the Federal Reserve's perspective. If you deport a lot of folks, and not just broadly speaking, but in particular sectors, in industries that disproportionately hire immigrants and probably undocumented ones. So construction is a good example, certain parts of retail, parts of restaurants. then you can see real potential supply shortfalls. We know what that does on the wage side, and that can feed into inflation. So I'm concerned that the combination of tariffs, deportation is potentially inflationary. If you then start to screw around with Fed independence, you have a real problem.
Jared, what do you expect to hear from Chair Powell on the subject of inflation later this afternoon?
What I think we might hear is some version of what we've been talking about today when it comes to the economy and my last response to those policy questions about the Trump administration. That is, I think the Fed's view of the macroeconomy is pretty much unchanged. Team Trump comes in, you get probably a little bit more animal spirits, a little bit lift there on the business side, but a lot more uncertainty on the policy side. What I expect to hear from Chair Powell is that we're pausing because we want to see what these policy ideas, the types we were just talking about, what kind of impact they might have on inflation and on interest rates. I think Chair Powell's careful not to wade into political waters, but he's already said, and I think correctly, that these policies can be impactful when setting interest rates. So what we should listen to is how they're thinking about the potential threat to inflation in particular from Trump tariff policies.
Maintaining that optionality these days. Thank you very much, Jared. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Coming up next, an interview you do not want to miss. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, one of the AI OGs, is going to join us for a wide-ranging conversation. Yes, we'll talk AI. Tech leaders flocking to the government, so much more. He's got a big new book out, and we're going to discuss it all after this.
Ever worry that you're drinking too much? Take back control with Or Health. Or Health provides access to medication proven to help. A daily pill to drink less, or to quit drinking altogether. Qualify for treatment at orhealth.com.
Amazing. Jerry, you gotta see this.
Saying it. Trust me, after 15 walks, gets a little old.
Stop waiting. Start investing. E-Trade from Morgan Stanley.
As your host, I have some rules. 2 flush maximum per bathroom visit. No games, no fun. There's a great barbecue outside, but don't touch that.
Meanwhile, at a Vrbo, when other vacation rentals make you share your turf with a host, try one that's all yours.
BAM Mutual protects municipal bond investments, providing an added layer of security to improve your portfolio with guaranteed income. Invest with confidence. Build a better portfolio with BAM-insured bonds.
The 2025 Grammy Awards are fueling a $106 billion global music industry by 2030 with double-digit growth. Meet Music on the NYSE, a global music fund, and the first pure-play music ETF investing in companies behind artists like Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, and Billie Eilish, from live music to streaming. Led by music industry titan David Schulhoff, formerly with Miramax, IM Global, and BMG. Dance to the music on the NYSE.
Only ServiceNow connects every corner of your business, putting AI to work for people.
Every corner?
Every corner, Nick. So, Kate in HR. Hey, Kate, can focus on people, not process. Patty in IT is using AI agents to deal with the small stuff so she can work on the big stuff. AI helps Jim solve customer problems before they're problems.
Oh, so we all work better together.
My work here is done.
Excuse me, which way back?
Sail through the heart of historic cities and unforgettable scenery with Viking. Unpack once and get closer to iconic landmarks, local life, and cultural treasures. Because when you experience Europe on a Viking longship, you'll spend less time getting there and more time being there. Viking, exploring the world in comfort.
Earnings season on CNBC takes you inside the numbers.
What do the earnings trajectory tell you, though, right now?
Smart analysis, crucial strategies.
Great to get your first reaction to this print we got from NVIDIA.
And when the CEOs have a big announcement, they come here first.
What's your take on not just the quarter, but how things look from here?
Helping you make the right moves.
This has been a key number the street was watching. A wild hour of earnings.
Earnings season. Special coverage all this month on CNBC.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. China's DeepSeek scrambling part of the narrative around American AI supremacy, shaking the stock market earlier this week. In his new book, our next guest is asking, quote, what could possibly go right with our AI future? Joining us right now is Reid Hoffman, partner at Greylock, co-founder, of course, of Inflection AI, most importantly, LinkedIn. He was an early investor in Facebook and OpenAI. He's on the board of Microsoft. The book is called Super Agency, which he co-authored, and it is out this week. And I am holding one of them, including an AI-generated picture, by the way, of myself on the back, which I don't know if we should show everybody, but there, you can check it out. It's kind of cool. Reid, it's great to see you. I want to talk about the book, but let's just talk about this news because it relates to all of this, which is to say DeepSeek, gets announced, it emerges. Has it totally re-scrambled the market in your mind for software, AI, for the chips, for the energy space, or is this overblown? What's happening here?
Well, it's definitely overblown. I do think...
It's overblown, you
yes,
think?
Yes. The level of reaction is overblown. There's a bunch of different things. So one, for example, I think that I actually always knew that we were going to get to a bunch of smaller trained models that have higher efficiency and targeting in certain ways. And part of the way you do that is by training them from larger models. Right. Like part of what's obviously quickly emerging is, well, part of how this got trained this way is by some kind of access to a larger model. Right. Great. And by the way, that's part of the reason why the larger models are useful. And part of what we'll see this year, next year, is the use of the large models from the hyperscalers will be to train a bunch of different small models and compose them in different ways. That's not news, or at least not news to most of us technology insiders. But I do think that the thing that is news is, well, look, as we've been saying, China is in the game. This is actually, in fact, a game-on competition, and it was resoundingly demonstrated that way, and there is good, useful work that comes out of it.
Does it change the dynamic, though? I mean, we've looked at, obviously, the NVIDIA stock piece of this, for example, chips, energy. If all of this can be done in a much more efficient way, it seemed to me, tell me if I'm wrong, that for the most part, everybody, at least in the U.S., was in we're going, go big or go home. We're just going to try to keep advancing these platforms without necessarily spending all the time on the efficiency piece. These guys seem to focus as much on the efficiency piece as anything else, and does that change the dynamic?
Well, say, for example, you can train a model on 1,000 GPUs, but you can make it much better on 10,000 GPUs. You will, in a lot of cases, always spend for the 10,000 GPUs or the 100,000 GPUs. Because if your coding model is even 20% better with that, and you think that there is billions of people who could be using and engaging that around the world, that's actually worth it in that kind of cost. So the fact that you're trying to do efficiency, that's a good thing. All of the American companies will also get to points where they're focusing on efficiency. I think there's things that we can learn from some of the stuff the Chinese are doing, but that doesn't mean you don't want the large models.
What do you make of the open versus closed source issue? And the reason I raise it is, you look at an Apple, all of a sudden people say, guess what? Apple has not spent nearly the kind of CapEx that others have, and they're going to ultimately have access to something just as good. You could argue they do with OpenAI today inside the phone, but it's a different story. In Amazon, there are people are looking, saying they're the winners of this because they're not investing the same amount, but they're going to be able to have the same outcome.
Well, so the real question comes down to how do you integrate these technologies into your business and franchise? And open source will be useful for a number of things, but just as startups tend to start with a bunch of open source and then add to them as they get bigger for things, usually open source doesn't help you solo by the open source power your much larger franchise and business. And what's more, as I think these, whether it's, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, as they get to the large models and training the small models, that will create in fact, a much more higher performance system that I think most of the open source will get to.
We're going to hear from Microsoft later today, and I imagine there's a lot of questions for Satya about whether he's still going to spend $80 billion. I know you're on the board. I don't know if you can speak to that. Do you think the investment case and thesis for major infrastructure is going to be the exact same today as it was a week ago?
Yes.
Okay.
And part of it's because, just to reiterate the earlier point, to get to the really high-quality smaller models, you need the larger models. Right, and the higher quality, larger model will also mean a higher quality, smaller model. Right. And so you still want the large training cluster, but part of, in addition to the large training cluster, part of the thing that you are doing is that you're also creating something that's also used for a lot of inference.
Right.
And so as the demand for these AI services go up, you also have the compute for that.
Right. Can you speak to the whole Stargate situation from last week? You obviously have a great relationship with Sam from OpenAI, obviously a great relationship with Microsoft, given that you're on the board. But there were some people, including people like Mark Benioff, who said this is a demonstration of a fissure that's happening between these two companies long term, because Sam is going to want to go his own way. He's going to want to have his own compute, and Microsoft may ultimately have to go do something else. I'm just curious what you think about that.
Well, I definitely don't think it's
They just put out a picture, I should say, on Twitter.
Yes.
Yes. Saying everything's great. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Well, the picture, for 1,000 words is like, here's the two of us just meeting, smiling a lot, right? To answer such, frankly, somewhat spurious claims. I mean, I think the OpenAI and Microsoft obviously have a very good partnership. They both cooperate and compete. I think that this move that's going with Stargate has been something that's been in months of discussion, and Microsoft has been in the discussion. So it's part of the partnership.
Right. But you brought inflection to Microsoft. Yeah. Mustafa runs the AI program at Microsoft. Yeah. By the way, I should also say Mark Benioff said on the air, I don't know if you saw it, he said, Mustafa and Sam don't love each other. I mean, it was very interesting to hear the sort of dynamic.
The days of our squawk box?
Well, yeah, the days of our squawk box. No, and the question is longer term whether you think Microsoft's going to ultimately have to build its own frontier models. Obviously, Satya right now is saying that he doesn't want to basically double up and replicate what OpenAI is doing.
Yeah, that's correct. They want to focus their compute on one. They have a very good partnership with OpenAI. Mustafa wants to build the best models to power the best agents for billions of people around the world. That's Mustafa's goal. It's however he gets there.
While we're just in the Microsoft land, let me just ask one other related question. President Trump commenting recently that he would like to see Microsoft, or he says that Microsoft is in negotiations to buy TikTok. You're a LinkedIn guy, social media guy. Does that make sense to you? There was a period of time where Microsoft, and if I remember, Oracle and Walmart were all together in the old Trump administration talking about buying TikTok.
Fortunately, I don't know a lot, so I can't say a lot.
Okay. You don't know a lot, so usually it's when you know a lot you can't say a lot. But if you don't know a lot, I guess you can't say a lot.
Ever.
Yeah. You can't say a lot either. I want to talk about super agency, because the other thing that to me is fascinating about what you talk about is this idea that you may have an incentive to almost I don't want to say over promote AI, but to think of the best sort of use cases and outcomes of it. But you make an observation early on in the book that basically you think your incentive is actually the opposite. Why do you say that?
Well, partially because, the way I spend all of my energy and time, which includes kind of economics, is how do I build stuff that it's good for humanity, right? It's also like the company you missed actually in your bio introduction is Manus, which is.
Oh, yeah, well, I want to get there too.
Yes.
That's on my list.
Yes. But it's how do we help elevate, kind of the human condition as best as we can. Right. And by the way, that's one of the things that's great about the progress of business and technology innovation and so on, is that's what it does. I mean,
and just to explain to the audience, this is effectively something you think is going to change healthcare, change pharmaceuticals, change all of it.
Yeah. Target curing cancer, best of AI, best of science, put together on that, speed up the clock, have identified a bunch of different cancer targets, starting with, various forms of breast cancer and other things, and then, accelerate the process of finding cures for those and getting them to market. That's what Manus is about.
How much, one of the other things that we were talking about in Davos last week with Dario Modi, who runs Anthropic, is just how quickly we are getting to either AGI or something super close to that. And, he's always been, I thought, actually relatively, not skeptical, but like a realist. And he became sort of much more optimistic last week, saying that, even the last 6 months, all of a sudden he sort of sees what that frontier looks like. Do you see that same frontier? I mean, he's talking 3 years out, sort of a fundamental change in our society, and that we're just not even, we're not even in the game. Like, we're not talking about this the right way.
Well, I think, look, I have this kind of somewhat interesting double vision of both being extremely positive and optimistic and thinking that there is a bunch of things coming in society that we're not talking about, but not quite the usual science fiction description that's made. It's like, oh, everyone's going to be able to be, pursuing their hobbies because all the robots are going to be doing all of the work, which is 100% not the case within, call it, the next 10 years, and probably much longer than that. And so you go, oh, 3 years. Like, well, that's actually not the way it's actually going to work. On the other hand, it's going to be a magical transformation of productivity in the cognitive industrial revolution. And part of that's because when you get to solving, like, this is the year of coding, and everyone's really working on how do you get a coding assistant. And of course, that'll end up create a bunch of productivity increase for software engineers. But what it doesn't fully track is that all of us get essentially a coding co-pilot on our PCs, on our phones. And that enables all of us in doing our own productivity in ways like, look, since we've never even been close to it, most of us don't have the thought about, what if I had an engineer that was always kind of sitting there kind of going, hey, would you like me to code up that analysis query that you were looking for to do a much better detailed way of doing this and maybe compile 20 different information sources into the thing that you're trying to look at? That will be there this year.
How much do you worry, even as an investor, that both the models themselves become so commoditized, because they're all relatively now similar, but also that it becomes harder and harder to actually invest in new spaces because the defensive moat that ostensibly would be around one of these businesses can be broken at any moment by any of these commoditized models?
So, I think there's two things. One is I think there will be some new moats, and I think some traditional moats exist. Network effects, for example, with marketplace, social networks, et cetera. Enterprise depth of integration. I think those things will still exist. The fact that you have a different product surface that's opening from the, kind of the open weight models is, I think that I don't think changes. It may change the product landscape, but doesn't change those things.
But you don't think that in the future, I'm just going to either talk to the phone or live in ChatGPT or one surface that effectively is then either through APIs or now like Operator, because it doesn't even need an API. It could just sort of like go surf the web itself. It goes and does it. Does whatever. And so therefore, all of these brands and all of these apps, and they don't matter to me in the same way.
Well, I do think that we will have multiple agents, including perhaps like Andrew's primary agent, in these things. I think that will change some of how the brands operate. But
that's
the brands
like a winner take all.
Well, that's the thing. That's always been my question. Given the amount of investment, does the payoff have to be a winner take most scenario?
Well, I do think there's multiple ways in which technology companies in a connected universe tend to get to more to winner take most. So in my book Blitzscaling, I describe these as the Glengarry, Glen Ross markets, right? First prize Cadillac, second prize steak knives, third prize you're fired. And the problem is, when you have universal connectivity, like everyone can get there, the thing that's 5 or 10% better will then attract 70% of the people, right? And so that's part of where you get more of that in connected environments. Now, that being said, I don't think that means that, like, for example, it's a question of how it will evolve do you have a set of unique assets that's plugging into the agent, and what's the deal by which it plugs into the agent? Like, say, for example, you had a Yelp, kind of secondary agent, and it says, look, your agent can connect to the Yelp agent, but part of the protocol of that is when your agent comes back and talks to you, it says, oh, the Yelp agent, branded, told me this about where you might want to go for dinner.
Right.
Can I ask you this? Page 192. You write, AI will also impact conceptions of freedom.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so I think the question about, like, just as the phone opened up our sense of freedom of when we're in contact, never getting lost in a city again. Like, I don't kind of look at a map and where I'm going, and and I go to dinner, I go, how am I getting home? I just pull out my phone, etc. It's also a sense of freedom relative to what I describe in the book as kind of an informational GPS, which is what AI is like, okay, well, am I just anxious or nervous about health conditions? I can get information about it. Like that sense of what space I can operate in, what I can understand, that creates a sense of freedom.
I have a political question for you. You spent an extraordinary amount of money and were quite public about your support for originally President Biden and then Vice President Harris. Clearly, you were on the losing side of things. A number, if not most, of the big tech Silicon Valley CEOs had better seats at the inauguration than President Trump's cabinet members. And I'm just curious how you see that, how you view that, how you think the American public should view that. Does that make you excited? Does that make you scared? Some people say they're there bending the knee. Others say this is fabulous that they are connected to this administration in a way that, frankly, President Biden and a whole number of other presidents were not.
Essentially, I think it's extremely important. If you ask me, should the American president, should the American government, any kind of Western democracy leaders be deeply connected to the tech industry? I think the answer is yes. It's how we're creating the future. Cognitive industrial revolution, what is that going to mean? Energy, climate change, a bunch of things, all of which I think is a technology answer. Right. So of all the industries, I actually think it's most important to be connected to the tech industry. Obviously, energy matters. Obviously, finance matters. Here I am in finance land. Right. Right. But I think that is an extremely important thing that actually I've seen as mostly undercommented.
But you think this is a good thing?
Yes.
And you're not concerned about it?
No.
Interesting. I thought he was going to come out on the other side of that. Reid Hoffman, thank you. The book is called Super Agency, and it is worth a read, an optimistic read on what's going on in the world of AI. But I think fairly, not skeptical, but I think you raise all the issues about what we also need to worry about. So thank you. It's a great book.
Pleasure.
When we come back, Trump media on the move this morning. Company announcing a partnership with a big financial player. We'll tell you which one after the break. Squawk Box returns after this.
In a world of uncertainty and disruption, how will your investments stay resilient? We've been navigating change for 125 years, always looking forward, anticipating risks, and trusted to manage over $1 trillion in assets worldwide. Solving for the needs of investors today and tomorrow. That's the power of Nuveen.
At Morgan Stanley, old school hard work meets bold new thinking. Partnering to unlock new ideas, to create new legacies, to transform a company, industry, economy, generation. Because grit and vision, working in lockstep, puts you on the path to your full potential. Old school grit, new world ideas. Morgan Stanley.
What's up, Carl Nation? It's your #1 broker with the best full-service wealth management skills in the biz.
Actually, I'm seeing something from Schwab.
Uh-oh. Yeah, Schwab lets you invest and trade on your own.
And if you want, they can even manage it for you.
Not to mention, Schwab has a team of specialists for taxes, insurance, and estate planning, all with low fees.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Carl.
Schwab. Schwab, a modern approach to wealth management.
It's not just about the ticket sales. It's maintaining that connectivity with her fans.
The power of a fan base.
She's built this billion-dollar brand.
She's able to do that in a pretty unique way.
The Swift Effect, Part 2 tonight, 10 Eastern, CNBC.
Who launches a makeup brand in their 60s? I'm Bobby Brown, and I started Jones Road because I wasn't done. I've always been known for a no-fuss approach to beauty. I needed something that made my skin look better and kept me looking like me. It just didn't exist. Jones Road is a modern approach to my beauty philosophy. Clean, good-for-you products that are versatile and easy to use. And guess what? You don't have to be a makeup artist to use them. Learn more at jonesroadbeauty.com.
This is the story of the one. The one knows that when the big game is days away, the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a solid game plan and a teammate like Grainger that she can rely on to deliver the product she needs when she needs it, she's confident that she will always win the day. And her team will do the same. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Check out shares of Trump Media Group surging after announcing it is expanding into financial services with a new fintech brand, I should say, TruthFi. The company planning to invest up to $250 million. The through Charles Schwab and be allocated to customized separate managed accounts, ETFs, crypto assets, and more. Charles Schwab will also broadly advise on TruthFi's investments and strategies. So you
Maybe
have
Sorkin coin will be there.
Charles Schwab. You know, that is the coin that will remain nameless because I always feel,
S-coin.
I always feel like if I mention that there's a coin out there, people will go.
I do wonder if this is I mean, Schwab has a huge business in all registered investment advisors, other intermediaries that just sort of, use Schwab as their platform.
Right.
Seems like Truth
Yes,
Social
but that's
is just
interesting
becoming
that they
another
decided
one.
to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Visa, by the way,
Yes.
is now hooked up with X.
Yeah.
So, but there's sort of
a payments platform.
Interesting political question of whether certain others. I wonder whether Charles Schwab was the first one to get in there. How that all worked.
Well, it's the whole decentralized finance concept, the debanking issues that some conservatives have been
Totally.
are alleging. So.
Final check on markets before we hand it over to the folks on Squawk on the Street. They've got a whole number of big interviews you do not want to miss this morning. The Dow off about 62 points. You're looking at the S&P 500 off as well, about 14 points. NASDAQ, after it was in the red and now in the greens, up about 20 points. Leslie and Mike, thank you for hanging out.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Make sure you join us tomorrow, Squawk on the Street, with all those big interviews coming up right now.
Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Carl Quintanilla with Jim Cramer, David Faber at Post 9 of the New York Stock Exchange. It is a big and important day. A Fed decision, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla tonight, confirmation hearings for RFK Jr. and Howard Lutnick, and the confusion from Tuesday's federal funding freeze now blocked. 10 years, 452. Our roadmap begins with the AI trade, though. OpenAI accusing Chinese rivals using its work for their apps. NVIDIA shares waiver pre-market, and big tech, as we said, including Microsoft, after the bell.
Plus, we're keeping an eye on shares of Apple. They're under pressure in the early going here. Continued concerns about iPhone demand. The company, of course, will be reporting earnings tomorrow, along with so many others. Coming up this hour, the CEOs of both Starbucks and T-Mobile. Starbucks notched its fourth consecutive decline in same-store sales. T-Mobile's forecasts, well, they were above much of what the street was anticipating.
Let's begin with the chips trying to extend their rebound from Monday's sell-off. Jim, ASML is surging, but Journal with a piece looking at whether or not DeepSeek sort of uncovers NVIDIA's liabilities.
Well, look, I think that there's a perception that more is less. More chips, more people who know how to use them, more out of China means less for NVIDIA. NVIDIA's been quiet. What they may have advised people, look, you can look at the CES post-interview, not good enough. I think people have decided that we had a rebound, but the reality is that the orders will decline. By the way, therefore, the power will decline because people are figuring out how to use more with less. And David,
that's the negative thesis.
That's the big negative thesis.
Of course, we've been talking about it since Monday.
Well,
yeah,
I'm just kind of going it over with people.
Okay.
But ASMLF does not say good things. It says bad things because what it says is, look, there's a lot of equipment being used. The more equipment they use, again, we have more is less. So the whole world is kind of coalescing upon the idea that NVIDIA is not as special as we thought. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, what does that result in, Jim? Because we've all been having conversations these last few days with as many people who make decisions about what to buy and sell in terms of this area. And the one thing I've heard is maybe it's the out years. Maybe the multiple simply comes down because there's more uncertainty in the name.
Look, I watched Brad Gershon yesterday. I mean, there's a sense that the multiple has become very low. So it's actually one of the lowest. And Mike Semple said
Brad's undeterred, by the way. He's a
everyone's
big believer in the overall growth not being in any way impacted. You know,
but if you don't
accelerated compute is the present and it's the future.
Yes, it is. And I would tell you they still have a tremendous lead. Is China an existential threat to them? What China says is that maybe you should pause. But I want to come back and say something that I think that people should remember. If Larry Ellison and Mark Zuckerberg and presumably Elon Musk were all buying the highest end chips, did they not have knowledge about what was going on in China? I think that's fanciful. I think that's tremendous knowledge.
I think they knew. I agree with you.
Which means
and by the way, I mean, there were the way this news played out is puzzling to some because there were plenty of people who were aware of DeepSeek's not just its aspirations, but its accomplishments previously with the previously released models. And so they had to have been aware of this.
Yes.
And so when you look at Zuckerberg spending 60 to 65 billion, the announcement obviously just on Friday. You look at the Stargate announcement from last week, or Nadella affirming 80 billion, and everybody else. They had to know, Jim.
Yeah,
and they're undeterred at this point. But everybody's looking everywhere for signs, right? Even Owens Corning, which provides fiber into data centers, I think was a positive read this morning. People are always looking for affirmation.
Right. I think that we're all kind of used to the greatness of Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. I mean, Carl, the most substantive thing that people are hanging their hat on is that all of these customers were mesmerized by President Trump and felt that they have to order. Now, that's almost conspiratorial. I think that they have more in mind than just doing Chat GPT in an advanced way. If that's the case, then these companies in China, they have figured out how to do the lower end. I think Jensen would say, well, that's terrific. What we're on is a very different plane. We've left that behind. We're not about asking them about why did Brinker have a good quarter? Is Starbucks coming back? Did T-Mobile take share? That's already in the Industrial Revolution. That's the cotton gin. I mean, he's talking about making the sewing machine. And I think that people don't realize that he is a visionary and he is well ahead of everything we're talking about.
So you don't think there's downside to at least the margins?
I do think that there will be, and I think that's why you're seeing some compression. But until someone actually has a better chip, an actual better chip, and there we have to see Amazon. And Amazon's going to report. Amazon is the one that is really rival. I was surprised that Advanced Micro actually went down because people feel, hey, listen, if this stuff is so easy, let's put it on AMD. But I think that a lot of that
and
was...
You can start using AMD chips because you don't need all the compute power of the highest GPUs from NVIDIA, but I don't know.
I would love to see Lisa Su talk about it. You know, we're in quiet period for everybody. You can't get the stuff that you like.
We're going to get certainly plenty of questions about it on all the calls that are yet to come.
Right.
Whether it's Meta, Microsoft, and on from there.
It is the theme of the moment because some people saw it coming, and yet they still ordered. That would be the Zuckerberg case, maybe the Musk piece. And then other people just said, oh, my, what am I in? I'm going to go buy a double short NVIDIA. And then there are other people who think it's a hand cream.
Well, there's another way to view it, which is that the DeepSeek's accomplishments, and by the way, Alibaba today as well.
I know.
This model, people, again, were aware of this. This is something we've been told some time ago, but they, released a new upgraded AI model that they say surpasses DeepSeek's V3. All of it, though, could point to sort of that exponential change that we fail to appreciate sometimes, because it sometimes just can't quite rattle around in some people's brains in terms of how quickly things can move. It was only a couple of months ago we were worrying that these models were running out of things to train on, that they were not progressing as quickly as previously.
No one's talking about scaling walls anymore.
No more. And in fact, you're suddenly seeing these efficiencies that have been added, these techniques that are different, open source, so available to all. And it does bring up the idea that there could be even more change more quickly.
No, I mean, but
even more compute power potentially needed.
Right, but the more is less means that maybe the monopoly rent that people feel that NVIDIA was charging is gone. There's also frankly, we had GE Vernova yesterday. The idea that maybe this whole concept of more power is ridiculous. I had Rusty Brazil on, he's my guy, RBN Energy, who was saying, are you kidding me? I mean, you really think that all these plants are going to be built? I'm waiting to see. I think the test would be, is 3 Mile Island not going to be reopened? That would be one that I need to hear. And secondarily, I need to hear that there are any order pullback. And I have not heard that yet, but that's not necessarily what people are going to announce. That they listen, I've decided if this thing only needs 1/10 of the power, 1/10 of the compute, well, I'm going to cut my orders by 9/10. I've not heard that yet, but this thing is a steamroller.
Real quick, by the way, I meant Corning. I think I may have said Owens. I meant Corning. We know Corning Glass, GLW, of course.
No, glowworm. We call it glowworm. What's funny, by the way, Owens Corning was considered in a Great Atlantic article. Did you read that about the Pyrex plant closed? The Atlantic was one of the last things that was said about how President Trump created a fracas about cats in Springfield?
No.
I know we're not
yeah,
that he thought it was extended to Pennsylvania. I know that the president won, and I'm looking at Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s testimony. I mean, that's retrospective. David would say, who was President Biden exactly? Remember when I went to try to bring him up and you were like, what are you talking about? He's out.
I got to tell you, I love you. I have no idea what you've just said for the last 30 seconds.
I made a reference to the previous president. And
the one who was president 10 days ago?
You somehow went from, I don't even know.
No, I
from
go.
Corning to
David,
Glassworks to Cats and Dogs to Pennsylvania.
David, just Google the road maps and you'll see where I'm going. You're on Uber. Switch. He's going on Uber. Well,
we do need AI to say, what did Jim just say?
Generative AI. Generative AI.
It's the only
Which, by the way, is so cheap now. I use this. See, this was the Blackwell? Forget about it. I use this. That's a picture of my wife.
No, what you got going on in there is more powerful than any Blackwell.
What you got on in there is pretty good.
Nah.
He's got to use that silver. He's got the silver in there.
When we come back, an exclusive with Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol on his company's results last night and the turnaround plan. I'll talk about the comps and what they've got in store on the road ahead. A lot of earnings to get to. Danaher, Jim mentioned Brinker, Otis, and more. Stay with us.
At PGIM, finding opportunity in fixed income today helps secure tomorrow. Our time-tested fixed income suite, backed by over 145 years of risk experience, helps investors meet their goals. PGIM Investments, shaping tomorrow today.
Are you having a hard time growing your sales? Is it tough getting new customers? Try infofree.com hot sales leads. You'll get unlimited sales leads, mailing lists, business profiles, person search, email marketing, and free CRM.
I got 4 new customers the first month. That's incredible.
I can see all my prospects on my smartphone. With one click, I can make my sales calls from anywhere.
Get a free trial. No credit card required. Go to infofree.com.
It's time to grow your business. Create a website. How? GoDaddy. Coding? Nah. But all that writing? Nope. AI. Done. Built.
Let's get to work.
Create a beautiful website in minutes with GoDaddy.
Create tomorrow. Start today. With new investment products backed by superior risk management. Asset management in a time of disruptive change. Financial well-being accessible to all. Calabas. Today for tomorrow.
Let's talk AI. AI in China versus AI in the United States.
DeepSeek, one of the companies within China, it's been reported at least that they have a cluster of 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs.
DeepSeek, their model is actually the top performing or roughly on par with the best American models.
To see the DeepSeek new model, it's super impressive and it's super compute efficient.
We're not just about managing information, we're about supplying digital workers. Now we're making this transformation of digital labor.
I'm Bobby Brown, and I started Jones Road because I wasn't done. Jones Road is a modern approach to my beauty philosophy. Clean, good-for-you products that are versatile and easy to use. Learn more at jonesroadbeauty.com.
Hi, I'm Cade Courtley, and welcome to the Ford Patriots Buy One, Get One Solar Generator event. Claim the Patriot Power Generator 2000X, and you'll get a free Patriot Power Sidekick with 2 free solar panels. These are 2 of Ford Patriot's silent, fume-free solar generators that can power your fridge, TV, and critical devices without ever needing gas. Every American should have the peace of mind that comes from having backup power. Visit FordPatriots.com to secure your free generator and solar panels now.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, but something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
Sometimes it's pure joy to do this job. Starbucks results beat on the bottom and the top line, despite some same-store sales declining for a 4th consecutive quarter, but a little better than we thought. Starbucks chairman and CEO Brian Niccol, yes, you probably remember from Chipotle, joins us now exclusively. Brian, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, great to see you, Jim. Good to be with you.
All right, so Brian, let's get right to it, because many of us, if not all of us, are one time or another been Starbucks customers. I see the partners as being beleaguered and overwhelmed. I see the customers frustrated with wait times and mobile ordering versus in-store, a first-in, first-out mosh pit. Herculean task. Are you up to it?
Yeah, look, I am really proud of the progress that we made. And, you know, you mentioned some of the challenges we're facing, but I think I've outlined, hey, here are the 4 key things we're going to do to get this business turned around, right? First, reintroduce the Starbucks brand to the world. You know, second, we got to make sure our partners are supported the way they need to be supported. It all starts and ends with them. I think this testament of 90% promote within has really resonated with our teams. And then also the idea of making sure that we simplify the process, bring order to mobile order. You know, the third thing we said we were going to do is obviously bring back the idea of a coffee house vibe. Hopefully you saw that with the condiment bar coming back. You know, when you stay in our stores now, you're getting a ceramic mug, some free refills. And then obviously the other thing too is we got to win the morning. And you're starting to see us do that. And that's what I was really excited to see is we're starting to see progress as it relates to our partners being in position, being supported correctly, eliminating some of the noise so that we can get after the great craft, the great quality, and really have people experience, you know, the premium experience of Starbucks. And I think that's what you're seeing start to take hold for the business. Small steps forward, but I love the fact that we're going forward.
Now, I understand that things got better throughout the quarter, and I'm wondering whether that isn't because you're starting to put some of the great lessons of what you did at your previous employ of Chipotle, particularly time to order, throughput, and yet throughput, but not sacrificing the personal experience by putting names on cups. Can you get some of the great things that you did at Chipotle to really work for you at Starbucks?
Yeah, look, really proud of what we accomplished at Chipotle. Starbucks, obviously, a little bit different business, but at the same token, a lot of principles apply. And I think that's what you're pointing at, Jim, is we're really rallying around the idea of we want to get after these 4-minute speed of service experiences with a human touch. And that's why you see us bringing back the Sharpie, bringing back the idea of making sure that the baristas, all our Green Apron partners, have the time to give people the greeting that our baristas frankly love to do. And then the handoff, I've talked about this as like the moment of truth, right? When they say, Jim Cramer, you're, you know, I think it's, what is it, Jim, a cappuccino with 4 shots and, you know,
that's
you're
a great
off to the
memory.
races.
That's a great memory.
So, you know, I want them to be able to have the experience behind the counter where they have the ability to connect with customers on every transaction. And what I think is really important is if we set things up correctly, we can do it in a way where the in-store cafe gets great speed of service with a great human touch. The mobile order gets the right speed of service with a nice human touch when you show up, and the same thing can happen through the drive-thru.
I'm concerned about mobile order. It's really a complex issue, particularly how it relates to people in store. I also believe that mobile order may be the front of when you're starting to get the non-rewards people to come back, which I think is a great metric for you. Can you explain to people the problem with mobile order, why it's so hard, and some of the solutions you're thinking about?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. You know, 2 things that I was really excited to see over the course of the last quarter. One, we're making progress with non-rewards customers. We had kind of failed to really interact with our non-rewards customer. We had gotten so reliant on discounting through our rewards program, we really forgot to talk about all the great things that are Starbucks. And I think you saw that in the most recent ad we broke, just showing that connection of writing on cups. We've got some new ads coming too. And we'll be showing up in places so that we can talk to our non-rewards customer, invite them back into the stores. On the mobile ordering side of things, look, one of the challenges we have is the way the system is set up right now is it's all about first in, first out. And so it doesn't take into account what's in the queue, what people are actually in our stores. And I'm really excited about the progress that we're making on using technology, deployment, and then also ensuring that we're staffed correctly so that we can manage, you know, mobile orders in sequence with the in-store customer. And we've got that in a pilot right now. I think I shared with some folks, even on the earnings call yesterday, I was swinging by one of our stores yesterday morning. It was really delightful to see, you know, we had gotten rid of that congestion area at the counter. The in-store customers were getting served, you know, right around that 4 minutes or better. The mobile ordering it just had a lot of order to it. And as a result, there was just a calm and an element of connection that was back in the store and gives people that experience that they want from Starbucks. So I'm optimistic about what we can do. A lot of work still to be done on this, but I do think this is a big unlock for us going forward.
Before I pass it off to my partnership. A lot of people feel like you should give up on China, maybe offload it to someone, maybe split it. You just came back from China. Wouldn't you be giving away a gem, even as it is a deflationary environment in China?
Yeah, Jim, I'm glad you brought that up. I just took my first trip to China. It is a tremendous opportunity. The coffee category and just the whole drinks away from home category is, to your point, it's a gem. And yes, there's some challenges right now from a macro standpoint, but I also think there's a real opportunity for Starbucks to continue to own the premium coffee experience, that third place experience, and then also do some things as it relates to menu management, pricing architecture, menu innovation, just to make sure that we have the right products for the customer in China. And, we're going to continue to figure out what is the right way for us to grow in that market. But look, I think there is tremendous opportunity down the road in China.
Brian, one thing that's resonating more broadly back here at home are coffee prices at an all-time high and egg prices at an all-time high. And I'm wondering how you're thinking about commodity pressure right now.
Yeah, look, right now, fortunately, we're in a pretty good spot as it relates to our, traditional retail business. The team does a great job of being in front of these coffee prices. As you mentioned, though, they are at all-time high. We're going to keep an eye on how this ultimately translates into our business in kind of the channel business or down the aisle business. But look, our hope is we can manage through these higher costs and continue to get people refocused on the premium value experience you get inside a Starbucks store.
All right, so
Brian,
I'm sorry, David.
Sorry, it's David. If I could just come back and listening to you and all the efforts that you're undertaking here to obviously make the customer experience better, it sounds like you're going to need more people or you're going to need them to be more efficient. I'm just curious how it all plays out in terms of the use of technology versus additional staffing and what that ultimately will mean for margins.
Yeah, look, I think in the long term, I think we can grow this business in a meaningful way so that our margin expansion will happen. Here in the near term, we're definitely testing and learning our way through how we use technology to sequence the experience, both for our baristas behind the counter and for our customers that come into the store. I want to get to a place where it is completely reliable every time you come into our store, that when you order your coffee, whether it's a brewed cup of coffee, you'll get it almost like within minutes because we'll hand it to you right at the POS. You can go customize it at the condiment bar on your own, to the delicious craft coffees that move down the counter, use our baristas to do their craft, and you get your coffee in roughly 4 minutes or less. At the same time, though, I'm also testing what is the right deployment and how do we make sure we've got the right staffing behind the counter so that we can have that human connection with the right speed. And so this is why we're really taking this approach of testing and learning, because I want to make sure we do the right thing so that we can provide the right service model every single time. I'm highly confident that we do that. Over time, that'll give us the foundation that we can grow from, which then helps from where we are today.
All right, so Brian, I just want to kind of wrap things up. As someone, my trust has a big position with you. I'm not going to say with Starbucks, but with you. And I want to know whether, no, look, I'm telling the truth here. I'd like to know where you are in the turn. And so many people were skeptical. People were worried about the franchise. Where are you in terms of the turn here versus then?
Look, we're definitely in the early days of this, but I am, I'm optimistic on what I'm seeing. I believe we've got the right strategies. I believe we're working on the right things. And I also believe the organization, both the barista, green apron, culture, is excited about what is to come with getting back to Starbucks. So I'm very optimistic. It's early days. It's baby steps with what we've done. But, look, you need that first little inch, and then you turn that inch into a foot, and then we'll continue to grow from there. So I'm very optimistic about where we can get to from here.
Then I share your optimism, and I have to end by saying, go Birds.
Hey, go Eagles, baby.
Thank you, Brian. Great to have you on this show.
Yeah, good seeing you guys.
All right, well, coming up, we're not done with CEOs. T-Mobile is among the morning's best performers, that is the stock. Quarterly results, subscriber growth guidance, all above what many analysts had been expecting. And CEO Mike Sievert is going to be live and first on CNBC right here shortly.
That's very,
Right?
This store doesn't have Agent Force, so an AI agent didn't tip off the stylist as to what I might actually wear.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a commitment. Hey, bud, what do you think?
You know, people can see you out here.
Yeah, right. Love you too.
Agent Force helps retailers prevent fashion fails. It's what AI was meant to be.